Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What If. So in this video, we will see what if Ben 10 was in the Invincible universe, Ben vs Omni Man. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, Stranger in a Bloody World. The Rust Bucket 3 tore through the night sky, engine whining as Ben pushed it to its limits. Smoke billowed from one wing where an energy blast had scored a direct hit. "Dude, can you fly any more recklessly?" Kevin gripped his seat, knuckles white. "I just finished the quantum stabilizers last week." Ben's eyes never left the controls. "You want to switch seats? Because I'm pretty sure that psycho alien back there doesn't care about your repair schedule." Through the rear viewport, a jagged tear in reality followed them, a dimensional rift spitting purple lightning that illuminated the clouds. And through it came their pursuer, Chronosapian mercenary Maltruant, his metallic body reconfigured for flight. "Gwen, how's that containment spell coming?" Ben called back. In the rear of the ship, Gwen's hands glowed with mana as she concentrated. "Almost, got it. Better make it fast." Ben yanked the controls, barrel-rolling the ship as another energy blast screamed past. "I don't think the Rust Bucket can take much more of this." The ship's computer blared warnings as systems failed one after another. Ben's hand hovered over the Omnitrix, mental catalog of aliens flipping through his mind. Jet ray for speed. Chromastone to absorb those energy blasts. Big chill to phase through attacks. Whatever you're going to do it now. Kevin shouted as the ship's left engine erupted in flames. Ben slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix. Green light flooded the cockpit. "XLR-8, he shouted, his voice now a raspy hiss through his helmet. "You two bail out. I'll lead him away." Kevin's eyes widened. "In the middle of the sky?" "Are you?" "I got us," Gwen interrupted, mana shield already forming around herself and Kevin. "Ben, be careful. Maltruant's not just after the Omnitrix this time. That device on his chest, it's messing with spacetime itself." XLR-8 nodded, visor snapping down. "Just make sure you're ready with that containment spell when I bring him back around." Without waiting for a response, Ben popped the emergency hatch and shot out into the night air, his velocity instantly accelerating to supersonic speeds. The wind rushed past his aerodynamic form as he plummeted toward the ground before pulling up at the last second, leaving a blue streak across the landscape. "Hey, clockwork. Over here." Ben taunted, circling back toward Maltruant. The Chronosapian pivoted mid-air, his crimson gaze locking onto XLR-8. "Benjamin Tennyson. Hand over the Omnitrix and I might let you live in this timeline." "Yeah, not happening. But I've got a timeline for you, the one where I kick your metal butt, again." Ben zigzagged through the air, his speed making him nearly impossible to target. Maltruant fired blast after blast, each one warping spacetime where it hit, creating mini temporal bubbles that Ben narrowly avoided. "You cannot outrun time itself, Tennyson." Maltruant's chest device pulsed, expanding the dimensional rift behind him. Ben circled back toward the Rust Bucket. Gwen and Kevin were safely away from the ship now, hovering on a platform of mana. Gwen's hands were raised, spell energy crackling between her fingers as she prepared the containment field. "Now, Gwen!" Ben shouted. A dome of magenta energy expanded outward, aimed to trap Maltruant. But the Chronosapian was ready. He fired a concentrated beam directly at the spell, causing a catastrophic reaction as temporal energy collided with mana. The dimensional rift suddenly expanded, its edges becoming unstable. "Abort! Everybody back!" Gwen screamed, but it was too late. The rift pulsed, sending out a shockwave that caught XLR-8 mid-stride. Ben felt himself being yanked backward, his molecules seeming to stretch as the rift pulled him in. "Gwen! Kevin!" he shouted, reaching out, but they were already too far away, their horrified faces the last thing he saw before the rift swallowed him completely. Everything went white. Then black. Then a kaleidoscope of colors no human eye was meant to see. And then he was falling. The Omnitrix timed out with a familiar beep, green light washing over him as he reverted to human form, still plummeting through open air. Not now. Ben shouted, frantically slapping the Omnitrix. Come on, reboot already. The ground rushed up to meet him. Buildings, streets, cars, all growing larger by the second. The Omnitrix remained stubbornly red, recharging. This is gonna hurt, Ben muttered, closing his eyes and bracing for impact. The Omnitrix suddenly flashed green. Ben slammed his palm down without even looking. Cannonbolt. His body instantly transformed into the hulking Arburian Pelorota. He curled into a ball just before hitting the ground, smashing through the roof of an abandoned warehouse. The impact sent him bouncing off walls, floor, and support beams before he finally rolled to a stop, uncurling and shaking his massive head. Okay, not my smoothest landing, Ben groaned, taking in his surroundings. The warehouse was dark and dusty, clearly unused for some time. Sunlight streamed through the hole he'd made in the ceiling. Where am I? Or maybe when am I? The Omnitrix timed out again, leaving Ben human and alone in the strange building. This time, the watch immediately began recharging, its face glowing green once more. At least something's working right, he muttered, dusting himself off. His jacket was torn, and he had a few scrapes, but nothing serious. Gwen. Kevin. He tapped the plumber badge on his belt. Anyone reading me? Nothing but static. Great. Dimensional travel. My favorite. Ben approached a grimy window and wiped away years of dirt to peer outside. The skyline looked familiar, Chicago, maybe. But something seemed off about it. He pushed open a rusted door and stepped out into an alley. The sounds of sirens immediately hit him, along with the smell of smoke. Lots of smoke. That's not good, Ben muttered, jogging toward the street. What he saw stopped him cold. Half the city looked like a war zone. Buildings were collapsed or damaged, streets torn up, cars crushed. Emergency vehicles crowded every intersection, lights flashing as first responders dug through rubble. People wandered around in shock, some injured, others just dazed. What happened here? Ben whispered. Instinctively, his hand moved to the Omnitrix. Whatever this was, people needed help. He cycled through his available aliens and slammed down on the core. Green light flashed, and moments later, 4 arms stood where Ben had been. Let's get to work, he growled, rushing toward the nearest collapsed building where rescuers were struggling to lift a fallen support beam. Stand back. 4 arms shouted. The rescuers turned, eyes widening at the sight of the massive 4-armed alien. What the hell is that? One firefighter yelled, reaching for his radio. I'm here to help, Ben said quickly, approaching the beam. This thing's about to give way. Get those people clear, and I'll lift it. The firefighters exchanged glances but backed away. 4 arms positioned himself under the largest section of collapsed ceiling, braced his legs, and lifted. Concrete groaned and dust showered down, but the beam rose, creating a gap. Now. Get them out. Ben shouted, straining to hold the weight. 2 firefighters rushed in, dragging out an unconscious man and woman. Once they were clear, Ben carefully lowered the beam back down. Thanks, one firefighter said hesitantly. But, what are you? Name's 4 arms. Just passing through. What happened here? The firefighters exchanged glances again. You don't know. It's been all over the news. The incident at the GDA headquarters, and then, whatever this was. GDA. Ben frowned. Global Defense Agency, the other firefighter supplied. Look, we appreciate the help, but maybe you should talk to someone in charge. There's more like you around here now. More like me. Ben raised an eyebrow. A commotion further down the street drew his attention. People were pointing upward, some cheering. Ben followed their gaze to see a figure floating in the air, a man in a blue and white costume with a stylized atom symbol on his chest. "Adam Eve," someone shouted. "Over here. We need help." The floating hero, definitely not male, Ben noted, drifted down toward another collapsed building. She held out her hands, and pink energy flowed from them, forming structures that supported the failing architecture. "Looks like this universe has heroes too," Ben muttered. He turned back to the firefighters. "Any more people trapped around here?" The next hour passed in a blur as 4 arms worked alongside emergency services, lifting debris and clearing paths for rescuers. He encountered several more costumed heroes, Duplicate, who could create multiple copies of herself, Monster Girl, who seemed to be a young girl with transformation abilities, and the Immortal, an older hero with super strength who gave Ben a suspicious once-over before continuing his work. None of them seemed particularly talkative, which struck Ben as odd. In his experience, heroes meeting other heroes usually involved at least some banter. The Omnitrix timed out just as Ben finished clearing a path to a subway entrance. Green light flashed, drawing stares from nearby civilians and rescue workers. "Just a normal teenager under all that," Ben said with an awkward wave. "Don't mind me." "You're one of them," a woman said, pointing accusingly. "One of those, super people. Is this your fault too?" "What? No. I just got here," Ben protested. "I'm trying to help." "Leave the kid alone," a gruff voice interrupted. Ben turned to find a middle-aged man in a suit approaching, flanked by agents in black tactical gear. "He's been pulling people out of rubble for the past hour." The civilians backed away, muttering among themselves. The suited man extended his hand to Ben. "Cecil Stedman. I head the Global Defense Agency." His grip was firm, his eyes calculating. "And you are?" "Ben Tennyson." Ben shook the offered hand, instantly on alert. This guy reminded him of the plumber's higher-ups, the kind who always had 3 hidden agendas. "Nice to meet you, I guess." Cecil's eyes flicked to the Omnitrix. "Interesting device. I don't believe we've had a transforming hero in our registry before." "You knew." "You could say that," Ben hedged. "I'm not exactly from around here." "Clearly." Cecil's expression remained neutral. "Why don't you come with me? We can discuss how you got here and what exactly that watch does. The GDA likes to keep tabs on all powered individuals, especially after recent events." Ben's eyes narrowed. "And if I say no?" Cecil smiled thinly. "Then we have this conversation on less friendly terms later." "Your choice, Mr. Tennyson." Before Ben could respond, the ground shook with a tremendous impact nearby. Both turned to see a figure standing in a newly formed crater in the middle of the street, a massive man in a white and blue costume with a mustache and red cape. "Omni Man," Cecil muttered. "Perfect timing." The hero rose from his crater, cape billowing dramatically behind him. His eyes scanned the scene before landing on Cecil and Ben. In an instant, he was standing before them, moving so fast Ben barely saw the blur. "Cecil," Omni-Man nodded. "I came as soon as I could. The situation in Cairo took longer than expected." His voice was deep, authoritative. The perfect superhero voice. Something about it made Ben's skin crawl. "Better late than never," Cecil replied. "We've got most of the civilian rescue under control. This is Ben Tennyson. He's been helping. Has an interesting transformation ability." Omni-Man turned his full attention to Ben, eyes lingering on the Omnitrix. "I don't recognize you. Like I told Mr. Stedman here, I'm not from around here." Ben kept his tone casual but stayed alert. Something about this guy set off all his danger instincts, the same feeling he got around Vilgax. Nice costume. Very primary. A flicker of something, amusement. Annoyance, crossed Omni-Man's face. A teenager with attitude. Just what we need. Where exactly are you from, Ben? Cecil interjected. It's complicated. Let's just say I had a run-in with some interdimensional weirdness and ended up here. Trying to figure out how to get back home. Cecil and Omni-Man exchanged glances. Interdimensional travel, Cecil mused. That would explain why we have no record of you. And that device on your wrist? Ben instinctively covered the Omnitrix with his other hand. Also complicated. But it lets me transform into different aliens. 10 minutes at a time, then I need to recharge. Aliens, Omni-Man repeated, his voice carefully neutral. You have access to multiple alien forms? Yeah. Over 60 at last count, though I don't have the exact number anymore. Omni-Man's expression didn't change, but Ben sensed a shift in his attention, more focused, more calculating. That's quite the arsenal, the hero said. And useful. We can always use more hands during crises like this. Speaking of which, Cecil cut in, Omni-Man, I need you to check on the situation at the hospital. Reports indicate the structural damage is worse than initially assessed. Omni-Man nodded. I'll handle it. He turned back to Ben. Perhaps we'll talk more later, Ben Tennyson. With that, he shot into the sky, leaving a sonic boom in his wake. Show off, Ben muttered. Cecil's lips twitched in what might have been amusement. Come with me, Mr. Tennyson. I think there's someone you should meet. The GDA headquarters was a massive complex that reminded Ben of plumber bases back home, all steel, glass, and security checkpoints. Cecil led him through a series of corridors, past rooms filled with agents monitoring screens and communication equipment. Several gave Ben curious looks, especially when they noticed the Omnitrix. So what exactly happened here? Ben asked as they walked. Looks like someone dropped a bomb on half the city. Cecil was quiet for a moment. We're still assessing the situation. Official story is a terrorist attack targeting infrastructure. And the unofficial story? Cecil glanced at him. You're direct. I appreciate that. He stopped at a security door, pressed his palm to a scanner. The unofficial story is something we're still putting together. Let's just say we've had a shake-up in the hero community recently. The door slid open, revealing a medical wing. Cecil led Ben to a private room at the end of the hall. The person you're about to meet is recovering from serious injuries. He's also coming to terms with some difficult truths. Go easy. Ben nodded, wondering what he was walking into. Cecil knocked once, then opened the door. Inside, a teenage boy about Ben's age sat on the edge of a hospital bed, staring out the window. He was muscular, with dark hair and a bandage wrapped around his midsection. He turned as they entered, and Ben saw deep exhaustion in his eyes. Mark, Cecil said. This is Ben Tennyson. He's new. Thought you two might want to compare notes. Mark Grayson looked Ben up and down, focusing briefly on the Omnitrix before meeting his eyes. Another teen hero? What's your power? Besides the weird watch. Ben shrugged. The weird watch is pretty much it. Lets me turn into different aliens. I just helped dig some people out downtown. Aliens, Mark repeated, the same way his father had. Great. Cecil cleared his throat. I'll leave you two to chat. Ben, when you're done, the guard outside will bring you to my office. We have some things to discuss about your situation. With that, he left, closing the door behind him. An awkward silence fell between the two teenagers. So, Ben started, you're a hero too? Mark snorted. Supposedly. Name's Invincible. Or it was. Not feeling very invincible right now. Yeah, those bandages kind of undermine the branding, Ben quipped, then winced. Sorry. Bad joke. Surprisingly, Mark laughed, a short, painful sound. No, it's fair. Everything's been pretty messed up lately. He gestured to a chair. You can sit if you want. Not going to bite your head off. Ben took the offered seat. What happened to you? Same thing that hit the city. Mark was quiet for a long moment. You really aren't from around here, are you? Nope. Different universe altogether. Different universe, Mark repeated. That actually makes this easier. He took a deep breath. My dad beat me half to death. After killing the Guardians of the Globe, this world's premier superhero team. He's not who I thought he was. Ben stared. Your dad. Wait, Omni-Man. The guy with the mustache I just met. Mark's head snapped up. You met him? He's back. Yeah, just now downtown. He was helping with rescue efforts. Ben frowned. He seemed. I don't know. Something felt off about him. Off, Mark echoed hollowly. That's one way to put it. He stared at his hands. He's not human, Ben. He's a Viltrumite, an alien from a warrior race. Everything he told me, told everyone, was a lie. He wasn't sent here to protect Earth. He was sent to prepare it for conquest. Ben leaned back, processing. This wasn't his first rodeo with evil aliens posing as benevolent protectors, but the personal betrayal Mark had suffered gave it a whole new dimension. That's heavy. I'm sorry. Mark shrugged, wincing at the movement. Yeah, well. Finding out your dad's an evil alien invader will do that. Trust me, I get it. Well, not the dad part, but the evil alien invader thing. Been there, punched that. Several times, actually. Mark raised an eyebrow. Your universe sounds interesting. It has its moments, Ben admitted. So this Omni-Man, he's responsible for all the destruction downtown. Some of it. The rest happened when he. Mark trailed off. When he tried to make me understand his mission. By throwing me through buildings. Ben whistled low. No wonder you're bandaged up. But why did he stop? No offense, but if he killed an entire superhero team. I honestly don't know, Mark said. He had me. He was going to. He swallowed hard. Something changed his mind. He flew off. Nobody's seen him for days until now, apparently. Ben's mind raced, connecting dots. And nobody else knows. The public thinks it was a terrorist attack. Cecil and the GDA are keeping it quiet while they figure out how to respond. Can you imagine the panic if people found out Earth's greatest hero is actually an alien invader? Been there too, actually, Ben muttered. So what now? Mark stared out the window again. Now I heal. Train. Get stronger. And prepare for when he decides to finish what he started. The determination in Mark's voice resonated with Ben. He recognized the steel behind it, the same resolve he'd found in himself after facing down Vilgax for the first time. Maybe I can help, Ben offered. At least while I'm stuck here. This watch. He held up the Omnitrix. It's got the DNA of some of the most powerful species in my universe. Including some that might give your dad a run for his money. Mark studied him skeptically. No offense, but my dad threw a guy through a mountain once. What can your watch do against that? Ben grinned. Let me show you. He stood, activated the Omnitrix, and cycled through the available aliens. Finding the one he wanted, he slammed down the core. Green light washed over him. Humongosaur. Where Ben had stood, now towered a massive dinosaur-like creature, nearly 12 feet tall, muscles rippling under scaly skin. The ceiling suddenly felt much closer. This is just the beginning, Ben rumbled in Humongosaur's deep voice. I've got aliens that can manipulate gravity, phase through solid matter, control time, even one made of pure energy that can survive in space. Mark's eyes had widened. Okay. That's actually impressive. The Omnitrix timed out, and Ben returned to human form in another flash of green light. I've been fighting aliens, monsters, and supervillains since I was 10. Your dad might be tough, but I bet between the two of us, we could come up with something. For the first time since Ben had entered the room, Mark smiled, a small, hesitant thing, but genuine. Maybe we could. If you're sticking around, that is. Ben sat back down, suddenly serious. That's the thing. I need to find a way home. My cousin and my friend were fighting Maltruant, the guy who sent me here, and they could be in trouble. The GDA has some of the best scientists in the world. If anyone can help you get home, it's them. Mark paused. But while you're here, I wouldn't mind the backup. Ben extended his hand. Partners? Mark clasped it firmly. Partners. After leaving Mark's room, Ben was escorted to Cecil's office, a minimalist space with a desk that seemed to double as a high-tech command center. Screens displayed various data feeds, security cameras, and what looked like personnel files. Cecil gestured to a chair across from him. Have a good chat with young Mr. Grayson. Ben sat. He told me about Omni-Man. About what really happened. If Cecil was surprised, he didn't show it. Did he now? Interesting. Why'd you put us together? You must have known he'd tell me. Cecil leaned back. I suspected he might. Mark needs allies right now, people he can trust. And I need to know more about you and that device on your wrist. His eyes flicked to the Omnitrix. Something tells me it's more than just a transformation tool. Ben considered deflecting but decided on honesty, partial honesty, anyway. It's called the Omnitrix. Created by a genius alien named Azimuth. It contains DNA samples of different alien species and lets me transform into them. A genetic manipulation device, Cecil mused. The possibilities would be endless. It's not a weapon, Ben said firmly. It was created to foster understanding between different species by literally allowing someone to walk in another being's shoes. Or tentacles. Or whatever. Noble purpose, Cecil nodded. But I imagine it's proved quite useful in combat situations. I've had my moments, Ben admitted. Look, I'm not looking to get involved in your world's problems. I just need to find a way home. And yet you already offered to help Mark against Omni-Man. At Ben's surprised look, Cecil tapped his ear. We monitor all conversations in the medical wing. Security protocol. Of course you do, Ben muttered. So what now? Are you going to try to take the Omnitrix? Because fair warning, many have tried, none have succeeded. Cecil actually laughed. I'm not in the business of antagonizing potential allies, Mr. Tennyson. Especially ones who can turn into, what did you say? 60 different aliens. Give or take. What I propose is a mutually beneficial arrangement. The GDA will commit resources to finding you a way home. In return, you help us deal with our Omni-Man problem. Ben crossed his arms. And if I say no? Cecil spread his hands. Then you're on your own in a strange universe with no resources and no allies. I'm not threatening you, Ben. I'm offering help. With conditions. Everything has conditions, Cecil said evenly. That's how the world works. Ben considered his options. He needed to get home, and the GDA probably had the best chance of making that happen. Plus, he couldn't just leave Mark to face Omni-Man alone, not after seeing the injuries the teen hero had sustained. Fine. But I have conditions too. 1. I'm not a soldier. I don't take orders. I'll help, but I do things my way. 2. I want full access to any information you have on interdimensional travel. And 3. No tests on the Omnitrix. It's not up for study. Cecil nodded. Reasonable terms. I can work with that. He pressed a button on his desk, and a holographic map appeared above it. Let me brief you on what we know about Omni-Man and the Viltrumite threat. For the next hour, Cecil outlined everything the GDA had learned, from Omni-Man's arrival on Earth decades ago, to his integration into society as novelist Nolan Grayson, to his marriage to Debbie Grayson and the birth of Mark. He explained how Omni-Man had methodically eliminated the Guardians of the Globe, the investigation that followed, and the confrontation between father and son that had left Chicago in ruins. So he's been playing the long game, Ben summarized. Infiltrating Earth, starting a family, positioning himself as humanity's greatest protector, all while preparing for an invasion. That's our assessment, Cecil confirmed. What we don't know is why he left without finishing the job. Or why he's returned now. Ben thought about the Omni-Man he'd met briefly. He seemed normal. Like any other hero. That's what makes him dangerous. He's had decades to perfect his cover. Cecil leaned forward. We need to be ready when he makes his next move. And that's where you come in. You want me to fight him, Ben stated. If necessary. But more importantly, I want you to help us understand what we're dealing with. You have experience with multiple alien species. Insight we lack. Ben frowned. I don't know anything about Viltrumites. They don't exist in my universe, at least not that I've encountered. But you understand alien civilizations, their motivations, their weaknesses. That perspective is invaluable. A knock at the door interrupted them. An agent stepped in, whispering something in Cecil's ear. The GDA director's expression hardened. He's what? Cecil stood abruptly. Where? Ben tensed. What's happening? Cecil shot him a look. Omni-Man. He's requesting access to the GDA archives. Says he's looking for information on interdimensional anomalies. Ben's blood ran cold. He's looking for me. Possibly. Or he could be genuinely investigating the dimensional disturbance your arrival created. Cecil checked his watch. We can't deny him access without raising suspicion. Not yet. So what do we do? We play along. Cecil headed for the door. Come with me. Time to see what Omni-Man really wants. The GDA archives were housed in a secure sublevel of the complex, row upon row of servers, physical files, and research materials. Ben followed Cecil through the security checkpoints, each more stringent than the last, until they reached a central hub where technicians monitored the archive systems. And there, examining a digital display, stood Omni-Man. He turned as they entered, his expression pleasantly neutral. Cecil. And the young man from earlier. Ben, was it? Nolan, Cecil nodded. Didn't expect to see you here. Thought you'd be helping with the relief efforts. The situation is under control for now. Omni-Man's eyes shifted to Ben. I became curious about our new arrival. Interdimensional travelers aren't common, even in our line of work. Ben kept his face carefully blank. Just trying to find my way home. Understandable. Omni-Man gestured to the display, which showed energy readings from various parts of the city. I detected an unusual energy signature downtown, near where we met. Reminded me of some Qinghao technology one encountered years ago. Thought the archives might have more information. Cecil moved to the console. The GDA has limited data on interdimensional physics. Most of it theoretical. Still, worth checking. Omni-Man turned his full attention to Ben. Perhaps you could tell me more about how you arrived here. The specifics might help narrow the search. Ben glanced at Cecil, who gave a subtle nod. I was fighting a chronosapien, a time-manipulating alien. He had a device that could tear holes in spacetime. I got caught in one of the rifts when it destabilized. Fascinating, Omni-Man said, sounding genuinely interested. And your device, the one that allows transformation, it came with you through this rift? Ben's hand instinctively covered the Omnitrix. It's bonded to me. Goes where I go. Bonded, Omni-Man repeated. Molecularly? Something like that. Omni-Man studied him with an intensity that made Ben's skin crawl. The technology to store and access alien DNA, then reconfigure human physiology to match it. It's remarkable. Advanced beyond even Viltrumite science. Viltrumite? Ben feigned ignorance. Is that your species? A flash of something, surprise. Suspicion, crossed Omni-Man's features before his expression smoothed again. Yes. I sometimes forget not everyone knows my background. Earth's greatest hero, Ben said neutrally. Guess that comes with a lot of public attention. Indeed. Omni-Man returned to the console. Cecil, I'd like access to the Qinghao files. They might provide insight into how to help young Ben return home. Cecil typed a few commands. Of course. Though I've already assigned our best scientists to the problem. Dar. Sinclair has experience with dimensional theory. Two approaches are better than one, Omni-Man replied smoothly. Besides, I find myself invested in Ben's situation. It's not often I encounter technology that surpasses my understanding. The way he said it sent a chill down Ben's spine. There was a hunger in Omni-Man's voice, carefully disguised but unmistakable. He wasn't just curious about the Omnitrix, he wanted it. I appreciate the help, Ben said carefully, but like Cecil said, the GDA's on it. And I'm pretty beat after today. Dimensional travel, alien transformations, disaster relief, takes a lot out of a guy. Omni-Man smiled, the perfect image of a benevolent hero. Of course. Rest. We can continue this discussion tomorrow. I'm particularly interested in seeing more of your transformations. For scientific purposes. Sure thing, Ben lied. Looking forward to it. Cecil cleared his throat. Ben, why don't I show you to your quarters? We've prepared a room in the residential wing. Lead the way, Ben said, eager to put distance between himself and Omni-Man. As they left, Ben felt the Viltrumite's eyes on his back, calculating, assessing. The message was clear, Omni-Man hadn't bought their act. He knew something was off. And he wasn't going to let it go. Ben's assigned quarters were sparse but comfortable, a bed, desk, bathroom, and small kitchenette. Basic, but better than camping out in the rust bucket. Not exactly the Ritz, Cecil commented as he showed Ben in, but secure. The walls are reinforced with a carbon titanium alloy. Not that it would stop Omni-Man, but it should give you privacy from standard surveillance. You think he'll try something? Ben asked, testing the mattress with his hand. I think Nolan Grayson is many things, but stupid isn't one of them. Cecil moved to the window, which offered a view of the Chicago skyline, lights twinkling in the evening darkness. He's suspicious. Of you, of the Omnitrix, of the timing. Yeah, I got that impression. Ben sat on the bed. So what's the plan? Cecil turned. We continue as we are. The GDA will genuinely work on finding you a way home. Meanwhile, you keep Omni-Man distracted, let him think you're just a lost interdimensional traveler with interesting technology. While secretly preparing to take him down if necessary, Ben finished. Precisely. Cecil handed Ben a small device that looked like a smartphone. GDA communicator. Secure line, untraceable. Use it if you need to contact me or Mark. Ben took it, turning it over in his hands. You really think we can beat him? From what you've told me, he's basically Superman with a bad attitude. Every being has weaknesses. Even Viltrumites. Cecil headed for the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow, Dr. Sinclair will want to run some tests on the dimensional energy signatures we detected at your arrival point. And Omni-Man? Cecil paused at the doorway. Keep your friends close, Mr. Tennyson. But sleep with one eye open. After Cecil left, Ben flopped back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. What a mess. Trapped in a universe where the greatest hero was secretly a villain, teamed up with a government agency that was morally gray at best, and the only ally he could somewhat trust was a teenager as out of his depth as Ben felt. He raised his wrist, looking at the Omnitrix. Wish you could talk, buddy. Could really use some advice right now. The watch, unsurprisingly, remained silent. Ben sighed and pulled out the communicator Cecil had given him. On impulse, he texted Mark, "You still awake?" The response came quickly, "Can't sleep. Too many broken ribs." Ben winced in sympathy, "Want company? Could use someone to talk to who isn't a secret agent or a murderous alien." A pause, then, "Room 342. Bring snacks if you can find any. Hospital food sucks in every universe." Smiling, Ben got up and headed for the door. Maybe he wasn't totally alone here after all. Mark's hospital room was dimly lit when Ben arrived, a bag of vending machine spoils under his arm. The young hero was sitting up in bed, flipping through channels on a wall-mounted TV. "Delivery," Ben announced, dumping his haul on the bed. "Hope you like cheese puffs and chocolate that tastes like cardboard." Mark grinned, immediately grabbing a bag of chips. "Better than gelatin surprise." "Thanks." Ben pulled up a chair. "No problem. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a freight train." "Then the freight train backed up and hit me again." Mark winced as he shifted position. "But the doctors say I'm healing faster than expected. Viltrumite DNA has its perks." "So you're half alien," Ben said. "Join the club." Mark raised an eyebrow. "You too?" "Nah, I'm fully human. But sometimes it feels like I'm half Omnitrix." Ben held up his wrist. "This thing's been part of me for so long, it's hard to remember what life was like before it." "How'd you get it?" Mark asked, genuinely curious. Ben smiled at the memory. "Would you believe it fell from the sky? I was 10, camping with my grandpa and cousin. Saw what I thought was a shooting star, went to check it out, and found this pod. The Omnitrix jumped out and clamped onto my wrist." He tapped the watch face. "Been there ever since, give or take a few removals and upgrades." "So you just found alien tech and decided to become a superhero?" "Pretty much. Not that different from most origin stories, right?" Mark laughed, then clutched his side in pain. "Ow. Don't make me laugh." "And yeah, I guess not. I just woke up one day with powers. Took my first flight by jumping off a mountain. Bold strategy. I knew I'd either fly or heal from the fall." Mark sobered. Viltrumite heritage. A comfortable silence fell between them as they shared the snacks. Finally, Ben asked the question that had been nagging at him. "What's it like? Finding out your dad is, you know." Mark stared at his hands. "It's like, imagine everything you believe about yourself, about your family, about your purpose, imagine it's all built on quicksand. And then the ground starts to shift." He looked up. "I keep replaying conversations, moments from growing up, wondering if there were signs I missed. If deep down, I always knew something was off." "That's rough," Ben said quietly. "I can't imagine." "The worst part is, I still love him," Mark admitted. "How messed up is that? He killed the Guardians. He nearly killed me. He's planning to help enslave humanity. And some part of me still remembers him teaching me to ride a bike." Ben didn't know what to say to that. His own father was just a regular guy, an accountant who got nervous when Ben was out superheroing. He couldn't fathom what Mark was going through. "I met him today," Ben said instead. "In the archives. He's interested in the Omnitrix." Mark's expression darkened. "That's not good. If he thinks it could be a threat to Viltrumite plans." Yeah, I picked up on that. He was trying to be subtle, but the guy practically had dollar signs in his eyes when he talked about the technology. Be careful, Mark warned. He looks human, acts human, but he's not. His people conquered hundreds of worlds. And they didn't do it by asking nicely. Ben nodded. I've dealt with conquerors before. There was this squid-faced alien warlord named Vilgax who was obsessed with the Omnitrix. Kept coming back no matter how many times I beat him. Did you ever, Mark made a slashing motion across his throat. Kill him? No. That's not how I operate. Ben fidgeted with the Omnitrix. I've had the power to end threats permanently. But once you cross that line, you can't go back, Mark finished. I know. It's why I could never be what my dad wants. Even before I knew the truth. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, comparing notes on superhero life, swapping stories of bizarre villains and impossible situations. Ben told Mark about some of his more unusual aliens, while Mark shared tales of his first few outings as Invincible. Despite the circumstances, Ben found himself genuinely enjoying Mark's company. There was something refreshing about talking to another teenage hero who understood the weight of responsibility that came with power. So wait, Mark was saying, you're telling me you have an alien form that's basically just a giant brain with tentacles? Brainstorm, Ben confirmed. Super intelligent, electricity powers, tendency to talk like he swallowed a thesaurus. And you've got one that's made of crystal? And one that's on fire? And one that can turn into any material it touches? Diamond Head, Heat Blast, and Goop. Though Goop is more like living slime than a material mimic. You're thinking of Chromastone. Mark shook his head in amazement. That's insane. With that kind of versatility, you could take on almost anyone. That's the idea, Ben agreed. Though it's not always as simple as picking the right alien. Sometimes the Omnitrix decides for me. And there's the time limit. A soft knock interrupted them. The door opened to reveal a woman in a lab coat, her blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Sorry to disturb you both, she said, but I thought I should introduce myself before tomorrow. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Sinclair, heading up the Dimensional Research Team. Ben stood, offering his hand. Ben Tennyson. Nice to meet you. Dr. Sinclair shook it firmly. Likewise. Cecil briefed me on your situation. Fascinating stuff, interdimensional travel. I've been theorizing about it for years, but you're the first concrete example I've encountered. Glad to be your lab rat, Ben said dryly. She smiled. More like a valuable research partner. I understand you want to get home as quickly as possible. I'm here to help with that. I appreciate it, Ben said sincerely. Any idea how long it might take? Dr. Sinclair's expression turned more serious. Hard to say. We need to analyze the residual energy signatures from your arrival point, determine the dimensional frequency of your home universe, and then figure out how to generate enough power to create a stable portal. Could be days, could be weeks. Great, Ben muttered. No pressure or anything. Look on the bright side, Mark interjected. More time to see the sights. And by sights, I mean supervillains trying to take over the world. Dr. Sinclair glanced at her watch. I should let you both rest. Ben, we'll start tests at 0900 tomorrow. Cecil said you'll have full access to the Dimensional Research Lab. I'll be there, Ben promised. After she left, Mark gave Ben a knowing look. She's pretty. Shut up, Ben tossed a pillow at him, careful to avoid his injured side. I'm trying to get home, not find a date in an alternate universe. Just saying, Mark shrugged, wincing at the movement. Anyway, I should probably try to sleep. Healing factor works better that way. Ben stood. Yeah, me too. Big day of dimensional physics tomorrow. At the door, he paused. Hey, Mark. Thanks for the talk. It's good to know I've got at least one ally here. Mark smiled tiredly. Same here. See you tomorrow, Ben. Ben dreamed of home that night, of Gwen and Kevin, of Grandpa Max and Plumber headquarters, of Mr. Smoothie and fighting forever nights. He dreamed of his parents worrying when he didn't come home, of Azimuth trying to track the Omnitrix's signal across dimensions. He woke with a start to the sound of his communicator beeping. The room was still dark, pre-dawn light barely filtering through the blinds. The device showed a message from Cecil, "Need you in Ops Center immediately. Omni-Man situation developing." Ben groaned, rolling out of bed. So much for a peaceful morning. He quickly dressed, checked that the Omnitrix was fully charged, and headed out. The GDA complex was a hive of activity despite the early hour. Agents rushed through corridors, screens displayed various alerts, and an underlying tension permeated the air. Ben followed the signs to the operations center, a massive room dominated by holographic displays and monitoring stations. Cecil stood at the central command console, directing personnel with the calm efficiency of someone accustomed to crisis management. He nodded when he saw Ben. "Good, you're here. We have a situation." Ben joined him at the console. "What's happening?" Cecil gestured to a display showing a map of North America with a blinking dot moving at incredible speed. "Omni-Man is on the move. Left his home 30 minutes ago, heading northwest at Mach 5. Any idea where he's going?" "We have theories." Cecil switched the display to show a remote facility nestled in the Canadian wilderness. "This is Site Epsilon, one of our more sensitive research installations. Specializes in reverse engineering alien technology." Ben's eyes narrowed. "And you think he's headed there? Why?" "Because," Cecil said grimly, 20 minutes ago, someone accessed our secure database using my credentials. Files related to the Omnitrix and your arrival were copied." "Someone hacked you? Or used my biometrics while I was sleeping," Cecil said, rubbing his temples. "Viltrumites move faster than the human I can track. He could have been in and out of my quarters without me ever knowing." Ben felt a chill. "And now he's headed to a facility that studies alien tech. After getting information on the Omnitrix." "Precisely." Cecil turned to face him directly. "We need to beat him there. Whatever he's planning, it can't be good." "How?" "He's flying at Mach 5. Even my fastest aliens would take time to catch up." Cecil smiled thinly. "We have our ways." He pressed a button on his console. "Prepare the teleporter. 2 passengers to Site Epsilon. Priority Alpha." Ben blinked. "Teleporter? You guys have teleportation technology?" "Experimental. Limited range. Significant power requirements." Cecil was already moving toward the exit. "But it will get us there before Omni-Man, which is what matters." Ben hurried after him. "Wait, us? You're coming too?" "Site Epsilon houses projects even I don't have full clearance for," Cecil explained as they entered an elevator. "My presence will expedite access. Besides, I want to see what Nolan is after with my own eyes." The elevator descended rapidly, taking them deeper underground than Ben had been before. When the doors opened, they revealed a chamber that looked straight out of a sci-fi movie, a circular platform surrounded by enormous energy coils, technicians monitoring complex equipment. "Power at 98%, a technician reported. Coordinates locked on Site Epsilon receiving pad." Cecil stepped onto the platform, gesturing for Ben to join him. "Ever teleported before?" "Once or twice," Ben said, remembering unpleasant experiences with alien tech. "Not a fan. This will be quick. Might feel a slight tingling sensation." "It's always a slight tingling sensation," Ben muttered, stepping onto the platform. "Right before your molecules get scrambled like eggs." Cecil spoke into his communicator. "Targets locked. Energize." The coils around them began to glow, energy building with a high-pitched whine. Ben felt the hairs on his arms stand on end as the air charged with electricity. "Remember," Cecil said quietly, "Omni-Man doesn't know we're aware of his destination. We have surprise on our side." Before Ben could respond, the world dissolved into white light and the peculiar sensation of being everywhere and nowhere at once. His stomach lurched as reality reassembled around him: concrete floors, fluorescent lighting, the smell of ozone. They had arrived in a facility similar to the teleportation chamber they'd left, though smaller and clearly designed only for receiving. Armed guards snapped to attention as Cecil stepped off the platform. "Director Stedman," one saluted. "We weren't expecting you, sir." "Emergency situation," Cecil replied briskly. "Where's Dr. Rathaway?" "In the main lab, sir." "Shall I notify him?" "No time. We'll find him ourselves." Cecil turned to Ben. "Come on. We need to secure the technology vault before Omni-Man arrives." They hurried through sterile corridors, passing laboratories where scientists worked with equipment Ben didn't recognize. The facility had the same secretive government vibe as plumber bases back home, but with a more ominous edge: less peacekeeping, more weapons development. Cecil led them to a massive vault door at the end of a high-security corridor. He pressed his hand to a scanner, spoke a password, and submitted to a retinal scan. The vault door hissed open. "Welcome, Director Stedman," an automated voice announced. Inside was a treasure trove of alien technology, devices floating in containment fields, partially disassembled spacecraft components, weapons systems in various stages of reverse engineering. Cecil moved purposefully toward a computer terminal. "What exactly are we looking for?" Ben asked, eyeing the alien tech uneasily. It reminded him too much of the places Vilgax would raid for weapons. "Information," Cecil answered, typing rapidly. "Site Epsilon has been analyzing dimensional anomalies for years. If Omni-Man is interested in the Omnitrix and interdimensional travel, this is where he'd come." He pulled up a file labeled Project Doorway. "Here. This is likely what he's after." The screen displayed schematics for a device that looked like a massive particle accelerator combined with a portal generator. "What is that?" Ben asked, leaning closer. "A theoretical design for a dimensional gateway. Based on technology recovered from a crashed alien ship 5 years ago." Cecil's expression was grim. The ship was Viltrumite. Ben's eyes widened. "Wait, you have Viltrumite tech? And you're just now mentioning this?" "Need-to-know basis," Cecil said without apology. "The craft was badly damaged. The pilot, dead. We've been studying it ever since, though progress has been limited. Viltrumite technology is complex. And now Omni-Man wants it. Why? He's already got access to that tech. He's Viltrumite." Cecil's gaze was calculating. Perhaps he doesn't want the technology itself. Perhaps he wants to ensure no one else has it. He turned back to the terminal. Or perhaps he's looking for something specific. Something we found in the ship's database. He pulled up another file, this one showing what appeared to be star maps. Coordinates. To other Viltrumite outposts across the galaxy. And potentially a way to contact his people, Ben finished. To tell them about the Omnitrix. A slow clap echoed through the vault. Both Ben and Cecil spun around to find Omni-Man hovering near the entrance, his cape settling around him. "Very good," the Viltrumite said, his voice eerily calm. "Though you've missed a few key details." Cecil's hand moved toward his sidearm. "Nolan. You're earlier than expected." Omni-Man smiled coldly. "Teleportation. Clever. But predictable." His gaze shifted to Ben. "And you brought the boy. Excellent. Saves me the trouble of tracking him down later." Ben stood his ground, hand hovering near the Omnitrix. "What do you want with me?" Not you, Omni-Man corrected. Your device. The Omnitrix. A DNA-based transformation technology that could revolutionize Viltrumite expansion efforts. Not happening, Ben said firmly. Omni-Man's expression didn't change. I wasn't asking permission. He turned to Cecil. The Project Doorway files. Transfer them to a secure drive. Now. Cecil remained motionless. And if I refuse? In a blur of movement too fast to follow, Omni-Man was suddenly beside Cecil, a hand on his throat. Then I take them anyway, after removing obstacles. Ben slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix without hesitation. Green light flashed, and Swampfire stood where Ben had been. Let him go, Ben demanded, methane gas swirling around his plant-like hands. Omni-Man regarded him with clinical interest. A methanosian. Combustible gas production, regenerative capabilities, plant manipulation. Useful, but not particularly threatening to a Viltrumite. Ben's eyes widened. How do you know? The GDA database is quite thorough. You've been documenting your transformations for them. Omni-Man released Cecil, who gasped for air. I'll give you one chance to surrender the Omnitrix willingly. The technology could benefit both our species. Like it benefited the Guardians of the Globe? Ben countered. I know what you did. I know what you are. Something dangerous flashed in Omni-Man's eyes. You know nothing of Viltrumite purpose. Our destiny is to bring order to chaos, strength to weakness. That's just a fancy way of saying conquest, Ben shot back. And I've dealt with enough would-be conquerors to know how this ends. Omni-Man sighed, as if disappointed. Very well. We'll do this the hard way. He turned to Cecil. The files, Director. Last chance. Cecil slowly moved to the terminal, fingers typing commands. Transferring to external drive. It will take a moment. Omni-Man nodded. Good. And while we wait. He moved so fast that Ben had no time to react. A crushing grip closed around Swampfire's throat, lifting him off the ground. Let's discuss the limitations of your current form. Ben struggled, plants writhing from his body to wrap around Omni-Man's arm. The Viltrumite simply squeezed harder, tearing through the vegetable matter. Methanosians are resilient, Omni-Man continued conversationally, but their regeneration has limits. Especially when completely dismembered. With his free hand, he drove a punch into Ben's midsection, tearing through plant flesh. Ben gasped in pain, feeling Swampfire's body struggling to regenerate. Stop! Cecil shouted. The transfer is complete. Here. He held up a small drive. Omni-Man tossed Ben aside like garbage, sending him crashing into a display of alien artifacts. A wise choice, Cecil. As the Viltrumite approached to take the drive, Cecil pressed something on his wrist. Suddenly, security panels slid down from the ceiling, bathing the room in red light. Security protocols activated, an automated voice announced. Initiating dimensional containment field. Omni-Man's eyes narrowed. What have you done? Insurance policy, Cecil replied, backing away. That field disrupts molecular cohesion across dimensional planes. Particularly effective against interdimensional travelers. A shimmering energy barrier formed around Omni-Man, who immediately flew at it, only to be repelled with a thunderous crash. It won't hold him long, Cecil called to Ben. We need to go. Now. Ben struggled to his feet, Swampfire's body slowly knitting itself back together. What about the drive? Dummy data, Cecil explained. The real files are backed up elsewhere. He headed for the exit. Come on. Ben followed, casting one last look at Omni-Man, who was systematically testing the barrier's weak points. Their eyes met through the energy field, and Ben saw something that chilled him to the core, not anger, but calculated determination. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. They sprinted through the facility, alarms blaring around them. Scientists and security personnel rushed in all directions, some evacuating, others moving to defensive positions. The teleporter, Cecil gasped as they ran. It's our only way out before, a deafening explosion shook the entire facility, sending them both tumbling to the ground. Emergency lights flickered. Containment breach in Sector 7, the automated system announced. All personnel evacuate immediately. He's out, Cecil said grimly, pulling himself up. And he'll be coming for us. Ben cycled through the Omnitrix, finding the alien he needed. Time for a change of plans. He slammed down on the core, transforming in a flash of green light. Big chill. The moth-like alien spread its wings, ghostly blue and translucent. I'll hold him off. Get to the teleporter and prepare for emergency evacuation. You can't beat him alone, Cecil protested. Don't plan to, Ben's raspy big chill voice replied. Just need to slow him down. Now go. Cecil hesitated, then nodded and sprinted toward the teleportation chamber. Ben turned in the opposite direction, phasing through walls toward the source of the explosion. He found Omni-Man in what remained of the vault, tearing through equipment and containment units with methodical efficiency. Looking for something? Ben called, hovering near the ceiling. Omni-Man looked up, expression unchanged. A necrophrygian. Intangibility, cryokinesis. A smarter choice than the methanosian. I'm full of surprises, Ben replied, then exhaled a blast of freezing air. Omni-Man didn't dodge. The ice encased him completely, forming a thick crystalline prison. For a moment, all was still. Then cracks appeared, spreading rapidly across the ice. With an explosion of frozen shards, Omni-Man broke free, completely unharmed. Is that the best you can do? He asked, almost sounding disappointed. Ben remained intangible as Omni-Man launched himself forward with blinding speed. The Viltrumite passed harmlessly through Big Chill's ghostly form. You can't hit what you can't touch, Ben taunted, exhaling another freezing breath. This time, Omni-Man avoided it, flying in a tight circle around Ben with increasing speed. A vortex formed, pulling at Ben despite his intangibility. Physics still applies, Omni-Man called over the roar of displaced air. Even to beings out of phase with normal matter. The vortex intensified, air pressure dropping rapidly. Ben felt his molecular cohesion wavering as the extreme conditions affected even Big Chill's intangible state. Desperate, he tried to phase through the floor, but the swirling air kept pulling him back. Your necrophrygian form can survive in space, Omni-Man continued, still circling, but can it survive having its molecules scattered across multiple states of being? The pressure was becoming unbearable. Ben felt Big Chill's consciousness flickering as the alien's form struggled to maintain coherence. With a final effort, he managed to press the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Green light flashed, and Omni-Man suddenly found himself circling chromastone instead, a crystalline being crackling with rainbow energy. Let's try this again, Ben growled, absorbing the kinetic energy from the vortex. His body glowed brighter and brighter as he converted the force into pure energy. When he could hold no more, he released it in a devastating blast that caught Omni-Man mid-flight. The Viltrumite crashed through several walls, momentarily stunned. Ben didn't wait. He raced toward the teleportation chamber, hoping Cecil had managed to get it ready. He found the director frantically working with technicians to prepare the device. 2 minutes to power restoration, one reported. We don't have 2 minutes, Cecil snapped. Reroute emergency power. Ben burst into the chamber. He's coming. Hit the Omnitrix again, turning into feedback, a black alien with plugs on his fingers and long antenna. Stand back, he warned, connecting to the teleporter's power systems. I can jumpstart this thing. Energy flowed from the facility's backup systems, through feedback's body, and into the teleporter's coils. The machines hummed to life, power levels rising rapidly. Teleportation sequence initiated, the system announced. 30 seconds to energize. Everyone on the platform. Cecil ordered, guiding the remaining technicians. A blur of motion announced Omni-Man's arrival. The Viltrumite hovered in the doorway, his costume slightly damaged but otherwise unharmed. "Leaving so soon?" he asked mildly. "We were just getting started." Ben positioned himself between Omni-Man and the platform. "Your fight's with me, not them." Omni-Man shook his head. "My fight is with anyone who stands in the way of Viltrumite destiny." His eyes narrowed. "Including interdimensional travelers with technology beyond their understanding." 10 seconds to energize, the computer announced. "Ben, get on the platform." Cecil shouted. "Now." Omni-Man moved, crossing the room faster than human eyes could track. But Ben had anticipated it, discharging a massive burst of electricity directly into the Viltrumite's path. The blast caught Omni-Man full force, sending him crashing into the chamber's power controls. Ben leapt for the platform just as the teleporter activated. The last thing he saw before reality dissolved was Omni-Man rising from the wreckage, his eyes burning with cold fury. Then they were back in GDA headquarters, alarms blaring as the teleporter circuits overloaded from the emergency transfer. "Evacuate the building," Cecil ordered, already moving toward the operations center. "Omni-Man knows we're onto him now. He'll be coming here next." Ben followed, reverting to human form. What was he after? Really? Besides the Omnitrix? Cecil's expression was grave. The Viltrumite ship contained more than just coordinates. It had data on a weapon, something called the Scourge virus. Designed to target specific genetic markers. Understanding dawned on Ben. And with the Omnitrix's DNA samples, he could potentially modify it to target any species, Cecil finished. Or develop a counteragent to protect Viltrumites while it decimates other populations. That's not good. No, Cecil agreed grimly. It's not. They reached the operations center, where agents were already implementing evacuation protocols. Screens showed the facility in Canada, now mostly destroyed, with no sign of Omni-Man. Where would he go now? Ben asked. Home, most likely, Cecil replied. To plan his next move. He knows we're aware of his intentions now. The pretense is over. What about Mark? Cecil checked a monitor. Already being moved to a secure location. Along with his mother. Ben nodded, relieved. And now what? We just wait for him to attack. No, Cecil said firmly. Now we prepare. Because the next time we face Omni-Man, it won't be by accident or surprise. It will be on our terms. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, thinking of how easily Omni-Man had countered his alien forms. I'm going to need to train. Learn more about Viltrumite weaknesses. And maybe. A memory stirred. Maybe there's an alien in here that could give even a Viltrumite a run for his money. Cecil raised an eyebrow. You have something specific in mind? Ben grinned. Ever heard of a Tecuster? Chapter 2, The Power in His Watch. The GDA's emergency bunker made the plumber bases back home look like luxury hotels. Bare concrete walls, industrial lighting, and the constant hum of ventilation systems, not exactly five-star accommodations. Ben sat on his assigned cot, fiddling with the Omnitrix while around him, GDA personnel rushed to establish a makeshift command center. 3 days had passed since the confrontation at Site Epsilon. 3 days of planning, preparation, and a whole lot of waiting. Cecil had relocated essential operations to this underground facility, completely off the grid, he'd assured Ben, though Ben had his doubts about anywhere truly being hidden from someone who could fly at supersonic speeds and see through walls. You look bored. Ben looked up to find Mark standing in the doorway, still moving gingerly from his injuries but looking significantly better than when they'd first met. Bored doesn't begin to cover it, Ben replied, sliding over to make room on the cot. How are the ribs? Still attached, Mark said, sitting down with a slight wince. Doc says I'm healing faster than expected. Viltrumite perks. Good to hear. Any word from Cecil about what comes next? Mark shrugged. Same as yesterday. Monitoring the situation. Whatever that means. It means they're as clueless as we are about what your dad's planning, Ben said, leaning back against the wall. Which is why I'm going stir-crazy in here. We should be doing something. Like what? Knocking on my dad's door and challenging him to round 2. Because that worked out so well the first time. Not exactly what I had in mind. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through the holographic display of aliens. I've been thinking about which of my forms might actually work against a Viltrumite. Big Chill's intangibility bought me some time, but your dad figured out a counter pretty quick. Chromastone's energy absorption gave him pause, but only briefly. Mark leaned forward, watching the alien silhouettes rotate. What about that way big guy you mentioned? The to whatever? To Custer, Ben corrected. And yeah, way big is definitely on the list. The problem is collateral damage. He's 60 feet tall and powerful enough to throw someone into orbit. Not exactly subtle. Since when is subtlety a concern when fighting my dad? Ben had to concede the point. Fair enough. But I'm saving way big as a last resort. I'd rather find options that play to specific Viltrumite weaknesses. He paused the display on a crystalline figure. Like Diamond Head. Petrosapiens have nearly indestructible bodies. Could be useful against your dad's physical attacks. Maybe, Mark said, looking thoughtful. But Dad once punched through a mountain. Literally. I'm not sure durability alone is enough. What about sonics? Ben suggested, switching to another alien. Echo can produce devastating sound waves, and he can duplicate himself. Worth a shot. I've never seen Dad vulnerable to sound, but we've never really tested it. They continued like this for another hour, analyzing each of Ben's available aliens for potential advantages against Omni-Man. Some were quickly ruled out. Ripjaws would be useless outside water, Stinkfly's flight was too slow, Wildmutt lacked the necessary offensive capabilities. Others showed promise, Atomix's nuclear powers, Gravitax's gravity manipulation, Clockwork's time control. The real problem, Mark eventually said, isn't finding aliens that could hurt him. It's keeping him still long enough for them to work. Dad moves faster than most people can see. He'll take you out before you can use whatever advantage you've got. Ben nodded grimly. Which is why we need to train. You know how he fights, how he thinks. You can help me prepare. I'm not exactly at fighting strength yet, Mark reminded him. No, but you can still advise. Ben stood, suddenly energized. And I bet this bunker has a training room somewhere. Let's go find it. The GDA's training room turned out to be a repurposed storage area, hastily equipped with some basic fitness gear and reinforced walls. Not ideal, but it would do. All right, Ben said, stretching his arms over his head. Let's see what we're working with. He activated the Omnitrix, cycling through to one of his most versatile aliens. A flash of green light later, XLR-8 stood in Ben's place, a blue-skinned, velociraptor-like alien with wheels for feet and a helmet with a visor. Speed, Ben explained, his voice slightly higher through XLR-8's mouth. If your dad's main advantage is velocity, let's start there. Mark studied the alien with interest. How fast can you go? In response, Ben took off, racing around the perimeter of the room so quickly he became a blue blur. The wind from his passage sent loose papers flying and ruffled Mark's hair. He came to a stop directly in front of Mark, who blinked in surprise. Pretty fast, Ben said. But I'm guessing still not Omni-Man fast. Mark shook his head. Not even close. Dad can circle the globe in under an hour. Right. So speed alone won't cut it. Ben tapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming again. This time, a massive crystalline being stood in his place. Diamond Head. Mark approached, rapping his knuckles against Ben's arm. Solid. What's this made of? Some kind of organic crystal, Ben replied, his voice deeper and resonant. Nearly indestructible. Can withstand extreme heat, cold, most energy weapons. He morphed his arm into a blade. And I can shape it at will. Hit me, Mark said suddenly. Ben hesitated. You sure? You're still healing. I'm tougher than I look. Come on, let's see what you've got. Shrugging, Ben threw a punch, not his hardest, but solid. Mark caught it with one hand, the impact creating a small shockwave that disturbed the dust on the floor. Mark didn't budge an inch. Not bad, he said, releasing Ben's fist. But Dad hits about 100 times harder. Ben transformed again, cycling through his combat-oriented aliens, 4 arms, Humongousaur, Wrath, Kick and Hawk, testing their strength and speed against Mark's. Despite his injuries, the young half-Viltrumite was incredibly resilient, easily absorbing or deflecting most of Ben's attacks. After nearly an hour, Ben reverted to human form, breathing hard. Okay, physical confrontation might not be the way to go. Unless you've got something that hits a lot harder than what I've seen, Mark agreed. What about that way big alien? Let's save that for outdoors, Ben said. But there are other options. He activated the Omnitrix again, transforming into a small, white alien with headphones. Echo, echo. You look less impressive, Mark observed. Ben's reply came in a mechanical, high-pitched voice. Don't judge by appearance. Suddenly, he split into 5 identical copies. Wall of sound. The echoes opened their mouths and released a concentrated sonic attack. The blast hit Mark full force, sending him staggering back against the wall, hands clapped over his ears. Enough, he shouted. The echoes stopped, merging back into one. Sorry. Too much. Mark shook his head, trying to clear the ringing. No, that was, actually effective. Dad might be vulnerable to that, especially if he's not expecting it. Good to know, Ben said, transforming back to human. What about energy absorption? He cycled through the Omnitrix again. Feedback. The black, plug-headed alien flexed his fingers. Conductoids can absorb any kind of energy and redirect it. Including kinetic energy, to an extent. That could be useful, Mark admitted. Dad generates a lot of kinetic force when he flies. If you could absorb and redirect it. Ben grinned, the expression strange on Feedback's face. Exactly what I was thinking. They continued testing aliens and strategies for another hour. Some showed promise. Gravitack could potentially slow Omni-Man down, Ghost Freak's possession abilities might work if he could catch the Viltrumite off guard, NRG's radiation could possibly penetrate Viltrumite durability. Finally, exhausted, Ben collapsed onto a bench. I think that's enough for today. Mark nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. You've got some serious firepower in that watch. If anyone has a chance against Dad, it might be you. It's not about power, Ben said, studying the Omnitrix thoughtfully. It's about the right tool for the job. And based on what we've figured out today, I think the right combination of aliens could at least give your dad a run for his money. A slow clap from the doorway interrupted them. Cecil stood there, a tablet under his arm. Impressive display. Though I think you might be overestimating your chances against a full-grown Viltrumite. Were you spying on us? Ben asked, irritated but not surprised. Monitoring, Cecil corrected. This is still a GDA facility. Mark crossed his arms. What do you want, Cecil? To brief you both. He held up the tablet. We've been tracking Omni-Man's movements since the incident at Site Epsilon. He's been busy. Doing what? Ben asked, standing. Cecil handed him the tablet. On it was satellite footage of Omni-Man flying to various locations around the globe, a remote island in the Pacific, an abandoned research facility in Antarctica, and finally, what looked like a massive spaceship buried in the Sahara. What am I looking at? Ben asked. Viltrumite technology caches, Cecil explained. Hidden on Earth over the decades. Some we knew about, others we didn't. He pointed to the buried spaceship. This one is particularly concerning. It appears to be a long-range communication device. Powerful enough to reach the Viltrumite Empire. Mark's face paled. He's calling for reinforcements. That would be my assessment, Cecil agreed grimly. Which means our timetable just got a lot shorter. Ben handed the tablet back. So what's the plan? We can't just sit here while he phones home to his buddies. We're not going to, Cecil said. That's why I came to find you. It's time we took a more proactive approach. The briefing room was crowded with GDA agents and what remained of Earth's superhero community. Ben recognized some faces from the rescue efforts in Chicago: Adam Eve, the Immortal, Black Samson. Others were new to him: a man in robot armor introduced as Robot, a wolfman called Monster Girl, despite being male in his current form, a blue-skinned alien named Alan, and several more. Cecil stood at the front, outlining the situation. Satellite data confirms Omni-Man has activated the communication array. Based on our analysis, the signal will reach Viltrumite space within 48 hours. What's the message? The Immortal asked, his ancient eyes hard with suspicion. We don't know the exact contents, Cecil admitted. But given recent events, it's safe to assume he's either reporting on Earth's defenses or requesting additional Viltrumite forces. Or both, Mark added quietly from his seat beside Ben. Cecil nodded. Either way, we need to act. The array is currently drawing power from deep geothermal sources. It will take approximately 36 hours to generate enough energy for transmission. So we have a day and a half to shut it down, Adam Eve summarized. Where is it? Cecil brought up a holographic display of the Sahara. Here, buried beneath the Tenera region of Niger. The ship is approximately 300 meters below the surface, but Omni-Man has excavated a direct access shaft. And he'll be guarding it, Black Samson pointed out. We're talking about a direct confrontation with the most powerful being on the planet. Which is why this will be a precision operation, not a frontal assault, Cecil replied. A small team will infiltrate the site while Omni-Man is distracted. All eyes turned to Ben. Let me guess, he said dryly. I'm the distraction. Cecil's expression remained neutral. You have the most diverse set of abilities. And based on your previous encounter, Omni-Man sees you and the Omnitrix as a significant threat. Great. So I get to be punching bag while everyone else has the real fun. You won't be alone, Cecil continued. Mark will coordinate with you from a safe distance, providing tactical guidance based on his knowledge of his father's fighting style. Mark nodded, though Ben could see the frustration in his eyes at not being directly involved. The infiltration team will consist of Adam Eve, Robot, and Monster Girl, Cecil went on. Your objectives are to reach the ship's communication array and disable it permanently. Robot will handle the technical aspects, Eve provides cover and structural support, Monster Girl is muscle if needed. What about the rest of us? The Immortal demanded. Secondary team, Cecil replied. You'll be on standby to extract the primary team if things go sideways. The Immortal, Black Samson, and Alan will position themselves here, he indicated a point 20 miles from the target, ready to move on my command. This is assuming Omni-Man takes the bait, Robot pointed out, his mechanical voice calm and analytical. What if he ignores Ben and defends the array? He won't, Mark said with certainty. Dad's been obsessed with the Omnitrix since he found out about it. If Ben shows up challenging him directly, he'll respond. Especially, Ben added, if I make it personal. Cecil raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Ben grinned, though there was little humor in it. I've got a few aliens that might actually hurt him. And if there's one thing I've learned about guys like Omni-Man, they don't like being reminded they're not invincible. Just don't underestimate him, Mark warned. He'll kill you if he gets the chance. He'll try, Ben corrected. When do we leave? Midnight, Cecil said. Transport is being prepared now. I suggest you all get some rest. Tomorrow will be challenging. As the meeting broke up, Ben pulled Mark aside. You sure you're okay with this? I mean, he is your dad. Mark's expression hardened. The man who raised me wouldn't recognize the person he's become. Or maybe I'm the one who never knew who he really was. He shook his head. Either way, we can't let him call in the Viltrumite fleet. Billions will die. Ben nodded, understanding all too well. He'd faced similar situations before, Ghost Freak, Egregor, Diagon, beings whose plans would result in mass destruction if not stopped. But he'd never had to fight someone's father before. It added a complication he wasn't entirely comfortable with. I'll try not to hurt him too badly, Ben offered, trying to lighten the mood. Mark's laugh was hollow. That's not what I'm worried about. The Sahara at night was a study in contrasts, freezing air above scorching sand, absolute darkness broken by a canopy of brilliant stars. Ben stood at the edge of the GDA transport's loading ramp, taking in the alien landscape. Despite all his interstellar adventures, Earth still managed to surprise him with its diversity. Beautiful, isn't it? Adam Eve joined him at the ramp, her pink energy illuminating the area around them with a soft glow. Hard to believe we're about to have a superpowered smackdown in the middle of it. Not the worst backdrop I've fought against, Ben replied. One time I battled this electricity alien inside an active volcano. That was pretty epic. Eve smiled. You're either crazy brave or just crazy. Little of both, probably. Ben checked the Omnitrix, fully charged and ready. So what's your story? Pink energy powers, flying, cosmic manipulation. Matter transmutation, she corrected. I can rearrange atoms. Create anything from existing matter. Within limits. Handy. No wonder Cecil wants you on the infiltration team. Eve's expression turned more serious. This isn't my first rodeo with Omni-Man. I saw what he did to the Guardians. To Mark. She looked at Ben intently. Be careful out there. He's not like other villains. So everyone keeps telling me. Ben sighed. Look, I appreciate the concern, but I've been doing this hero thing a long time. I've faced planet-destroying threats, interdimensional conquerors, literal gods. I can handle one angry flying mustache man. Before Eve could respond, Cecil approached, accompanied by Mark. 5 minutes to drop point, Tennyson. You ready? Ben nodded. As I'll ever be. Cecil handed him a small earpiece. Communications. Mark will be monitoring from the command ship, providing guidance. The rest of the team will move once you've engaged Omni-Man. And if he doesn't take the bait? He will, Mark said confidently. I know him. He won't be able to resist proving his superiority, especially against someone with your abilities. Great. My winning personality at work again. Cecil checked his watch. The array is nearly 70% charged. You need to keep him occupied for at least 30 minutes to give the infiltration team time to reach the control center and disable it. 30 minutes with an angry Viltrumite, Ben muttered. No problem. The pilot's voice came over the intercom. Approaching drop zone. 1 minute to release. Ben took a deep breath, mentally reviewing the aliens he'd selected for this confrontation. He'd spent the journey practicing quick transitions between forms, minimizing the vulnerability during transformation. Remember, Mark said, gripping Ben's shoulder, he's faster than you think, stronger than you expect, and smarter than he lets on. Don't give him a single opening. Ben nodded, then stepped to the edge of the ramp as it lowered completely. The desert wind whipped at his face, sand stinging his eyes. Below, barely visible in the moonlight, was a massive excavation site, a gaping wound in the earth where Omni-Man had dug down to the buried Viltrumite ship. There's an access tunnel on the north side, Cecil instructed. The infiltration team will enter there once you've drawn Omni-Man away from the site. Got it. Ben activated the Omnitrix, selecting his first form. Time to make some noise. He jumped from the ramp without hesitation, slamming down on the Omnitrix as he fell. Green light flashed, and jet rays shot through the night sky, a red, mantle-like alien with incredible speed and maneuverability. Ben swooped low over the excavation site, scanning for signs of Omni-Man. The pit was enormous, at least half a mile across, with a central shaft leading deep underground. Floodlights illuminated the area, powered by generators that hummed in the stillness. I don't see him, Ben reported through the communicator. Could he be inside the ship? Probably, Mark's voice crackled in his ear. Try the main shaft. But be careful, confined spaces are where he's most dangerous. No room to maneuver. Ben circled the pit once more, then dived toward the central shaft. As he approached, he charged his neuroshock beams, ready to announce his presence with appropriate fanfare. The shaft was wide enough to accommodate his wingspan, descending at a steep angle into darkness. Ben flew lower, the floodlights falling away behind him. Soon he was navigating by Jetray's natural night vision, following the rough-hewn tunnel downward. After what seemed like an eternity of descent, the shaft opened into an enormous cavern. And there, partially excavated from the surrounding rock, was the Viltrumite ship, sleek, aerodynamic, and undeniably alien. Its hull gleamed dully in the limited light, covered in symbols Ben didn't recognize. I see the ship, he reported. It's huge. Like a cross between a battlecruiser and a bullet train. The array should be on the upper section, Cecil instructed. Look for a dish-like structure or antenna. Ben scanned the visible portions of the ship, eventually spotting what looked like a satellite dish emerging from the hull. It was pulsing with blue-white energy, growing steadily brighter. Found it. Definitely powering up. And, he stopped abruptly, sensors detecting movement. I'm not alone down here. Be ready, Mark warned. He might try to. The rest of Mark's warning was lost as something slammed into Ben from behind, sending him tumbling through the air. He barely managed to stabilize himself before a second impact caught him in the side, cracking several of Jetray's ribs. Too slow, Omni-Man's voice echoed through the cavern. I expected more from the wielder of the Omnitrix. Ben fired neuroshock beams in all directions, trying to pinpoint his attacker. One beam connected, illuminating Omni-Man briefly before he vanished again, moving faster than Jetray's eyes could track. Playing hide and seek. Ben called out, hovering in the center of the cavern. Not very heroic. I'm merely observing, Omni-Man replied, his voice seeming to come from everywhere at once. Assessing. The Necrophrygian and Conductoid showed promise. This form, Aerophibian, correct, seems less impressive. Ben realized Omni-Man was toying with him, studying his capabilities. Time to change tactics. He hit the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming midair. Chroma Stone. The crystalline alien absorbed the kinetic energy of his fall, landing on the cavern floor with a heavy thud. Purple light emanated from his body, illuminating the space around him. There you are, Ben said, spotting Omni-Man hovering near the ship. Nice place you've got here. Bit remote for my taste, but the subterranean supervillain aesthetic works for you. Omni-Man descended slowly, cape billowing around him. He looked exactly as he had at Site Epsilon, composed, confident, completely unthreatened. Benjamin Tennyson, he said, as if greeting an old friend. You're either very brave or very foolish to come here alone. Maybe both, Ben replied, charging energy in his hands. But I couldn't let you make your phone call home without dropping by to say hello. Omni-Man smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. You know about the communication array. Cecil's work, I presume. Or perhaps my son's. Does it matter? I'm here to shut it down. Noble. Misguided, but noble. Omni-Man landed a few yards away, hands clasped behind his back. You don't understand what you're interfering with, Ben. The Viltrumite Empire brings order, stability, progress. Earth needs our guidance. Yeah, I've heard the "we're conquering you for your own good" speech before, Ben shot back. Usually right before I kicked the speakers, but back to whatever planet they crawled from. Something dangerous flashed in Omni-Man's eyes. You think your experiences in your universe translate to this one? Here, there are no happy endings for those who oppose Viltrumite will. Here, heroes die bloody. Like the guardians of the globe? Ben challenged. Funny thing about massacres, they tend to inspire people to prove the killer wrong. That hit a nerve. Omni-Man's composed facade cracked slightly. You know nothing about what happened. About what had to be done. I know you murdered your friends, Ben pressed. I know you nearly killed your own son. And for what? To prepare Earth for an invasion that will enslave or exterminate humanity. Enough. Omni-Man's shout echoed through the cavern. You speak of matters beyond your comprehension, child. The Viltrumite mission spans millennia. The greater good requires sacrifice. Keep telling yourself that, Ben said, readying his energy. Meanwhile, I'll be over here stopping your little phone call. He fired a concentrated beam of energy directly at Omni-Man. The Viltrumite didn't dodge, taking the blast head-on. When the light faded, he stood unharmed, not even his costume damaged. Impressive output, he remarked casually. But insufficient. The Crystalcipian form channels energy well, but lacks the raw power needed to harm a Viltrumite. Ben had expected as much, but the attack hadn't been meant to hurt, just to gauge Omni-Man's reaction. Now he knew the Viltrumite would tank attacks he thought he could withstand rather than avoid them. Useful information. Just warming up, Ben said, transforming again. Humongousaur. The massive dinosaur-like alien roared, instantly growing from 10 feet to nearly 30, muscles bulging. Ben charged forward, the ground shaking with each step. His massive fist connected with Omni-Man's jaw in an impact that would have shattered concrete. The Viltrumite's head snapped back, then immediately returned, completely unharmed. Physical strength, Omni-Man observed. The cornerstone of Vaxasaurian abilities. Impressive by Earth standards. His hand shot out, grabbing Ben's fist. Utterly meaningless to a Viltrumite. With a twist that defied physics, Omni-Man flipped the 30-foot Humongousaur over his shoulder, slamming him into the cavern floor with enough force to create a crater. Pain exploded through Ben's body as several of Humongousaur's bones cracked. The array is at 80%, Omni-Man continued conversationally, hovering over the fallen alien. Once it transmits, the Viltrumite fleet will begin its journey. Earth will be under our protection within a year. You mean your control, Ben groaned, struggling to stand. Semantics, Omni-Man waved dismissively. Now, shall we continue this exercise, or would you prefer to surrender the Omnitrix willingly? Its technology would be invaluable to the Empire. Not gonna happen, Ben growled, transforming again. Big chill. The moth-like alien phased through the ground, disappearing from Omni-Man's sight. The Viltrumite remained calm, scanning the cavern methodically. Necrophrygian intangibility, he called out. Effective for evasion, less so for offense against beings of my durability. Ben's voice echoed eerily. Maybe. But you forgot something important about Big Chill. And what's that? I don't just phase through things. I can freeze them from the inside out. Ben shot upward, passing through Omni-Man's body before the Viltrumite could react. As he emerged, he exhaled his freezing breath, encasing Omni-Man in a block of ice so cold it glowed blue. For a moment, everything was still. Then cracks appeared in the ice, spreading rapidly. With an explosion of frozen shards, Omni-Man broke free, but not as easily as before. Ice crystals clung to his costume, and his movements seemed slightly stiff. "Interesting," he muttered, brushing ice from his shoulders. "Internal freezing. Almost clever." Ben didn't wait for him to recover. He transformed again, this time into a small, frog-like alien with enormous eyes. "Jury rig. Break break break." He leapt toward the communications array, cackling maniacally. If direct confrontation wouldn't work, maybe sabotage would. Omni-Man moved with blinding speed, intercepting him mid-air. "I think not." The Viltrumite's backhand sent Jury Rig flying across the cavern, crashing into the far wall. The impact would have killed a human, but the diminutive alien was surprisingly resilient. "Fix fix fix." Ben chittered, immediately scurrying along the wall toward the ship. Omni-Man pursued, but Jury Rig's small size and erratic movements made him difficult to catch. Ben reached the communication array, fingers working with supernatural speed to disassemble critical components. "Get away from that!" Omni-Man roared, genuine anger breaking through his composed demeanor. Ben transformed again just as Omni-Man reached him. Feedback. Energy crackled between his antennae as he absorbed power directly from the array. The blue-white glow dimmed as Ben siphoned off its charge, redirecting it through his body. Omni-Man grabbed him by the throat. "Enough games." Ben grinned, plugs extending from his fingers to connect with Omni-Man's arm. "Who's playing?" The stored energy discharged directly into the Viltrumite, not just the power from the array, but all the kinetic force from Omni-Man's earlier attacks, converted and amplified. The blast sent the Viltrumite flying backward, crashing through a support column. "Mark," Ben gasped into his communicator as Omni-Man picked himself up. "Tell the team to move in. I've got him distracted, and I've drained some of the array's power." "They're already en route," Mark replied. "Just hold on a little longer." Omni-Man rose from the rubble, his costume torn, a look of genuine surprise on his face. "That actually hurt." "There's more where that came from," Ben promised, charging his hands again. Omni-Man's surprise gave way to cold fury. "I've been holding back, Benjamin. Studying you. Learning your capabilities." His eyes narrowed. "That ends now." He moved so fast Ben didn't even see it. One moment Omni-Man was across the cavern, the next his fist was buried in Feedback's abdomen. Ben felt ribs shatter, internal organs rupture. The Omnitrix sparked as it struggled to maintain the transformation under catastrophic damage. Before Ben could recover, Omni-Man grabbed his antenna and swung him like a flail, smashing him repeatedly into the cavern wall. Each impact sent fresh waves of agony through his body. "Your aliens have impressive abilities," Omni-Man said calmly, continuing the assault. "But they lack the durability to withstand Viltrumite strength. A fundamental design flaw." With a final, devastating blow, he slammed Ben into the ground. The Omnitrix timed out, green light washing over him as he reverted to human form. Ben lay in a crater, every breath sending spikes of pain through his chest. Omni-Man landed beside him, looking down with clinical detachment. "I admire your courage," the Viltrumite said. "But this outcome was inevitable. No single being can match a Viltrumite at full power." Ben coughed, tasting blood. "Good thing. I'm not alone then." Confusion flickered across Omni-Man's face, then understanding. He spun toward the ship, just in time to see pink energy enveloping the communication array. "No." He launched himself toward the ship, only to be intercepted by a massive, reptilian form, monster girl in her transformed state, catching him in a bear hug. "Sorry to crash the party," she growled, straining to hold him. "But that call's been disconnected." Omni-Man broke free with a roar of rage, sending Monster Girl flying. But the distraction had served its purpose. Robot emerged from the ship's access hatch, mechanical arms extended. The primary transmitter has been disabled, he announced. The array is offline. Traitors. Omni-Man bellowed, charging toward Robot. You doom your own species. A dome of pink energy formed around Robot, Adam Eve floating down to join him. The only one dooming anyone is you, Nolan, she said, strain evident in her voice as she maintained the shield against Omni-Man's assault. Ben watched through pain-blurred vision as the Viltrumite pounded against Eve's energy construct. It was holding, but cracking under each impact. They needed more time to escape. The Omnitrix had recharged, its face glowing green once more. Ben struggled to his feet, cycling through his aliens with trembling fingers. He needed something big, something powerful enough to at least slow Omni-Man down. He found what he was looking for and slammed down on the core. Way big. The cavern suddenly felt very small as the massive Tecuster form materialized. 60 feet tall, humanoid with a red and white body, a fin on his head, and cosmic power coursing through his hands. Ben's head nearly touched the ceiling, forcing him to hunch over. Hey, Mustache, he called, his voice booming through the space. Pick on someone your own size. Omni-Man turned, momentarily stunned by the transformation. A Tecuster. Impossible. They're cosmic entities, not, Ben didn't let him finish. He swung a massive fist, catching Omni-Man mid-sentence and sending him crashing through the cavern wall. The impact shook the entire structure, rocks falling from the ceiling. Eve. Robot. Monster Girl. Ben called out. Get to the extraction point. This place is coming down. What about you? Eve shouted back. I'll keep him busy. Go. The team didn't argue, retreating toward the access shaft. Ben turned his attention back to the hole he'd punched in the wall, just in time to see Omni-Man emerging from the rubble. The Viltrumite looked small from Way Big's perspective, but no less dangerous. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead, the first real injury Ben had managed to inflict. Impressive, Omni-Man acknowledged, wiping the blood away. The Tecuster species is rare. Powerful. But still flesh and blood. He launched himself at Ben with renewed fury. Despite Way Big's size and strength, Omni-Man moved too fast to track effectively, landing punishing blows to sensitive areas, joints, eyes, the fin on his head. Each strike felt like being hit by a missile. Ben fought back, cosmic energy beams firing from his hands, massive fists swinging at his nimble opponent. But the confined space worked against him. Way Big needed room to maneuver, to use his full strength. Here, he was like a giant trying to swat a fly in a closet. This form has power, Omni-Man called as he dodged another attack, but lacks precision. A common weakness in beings of great size. He demonstrated his point by drilling through Way Big's shoulder, creating a clean hole that spurted cosmic energy like blood. Ben roared in pain, instinctively grabbing for the wound. The cavern continued to collapse around them, support structures failing under the strain of their battle. Ben realized he needed to end this, not by winning, but by escaping. He'd accomplished the mission, the array was disabled. Now he needed to get out alive. With a grunt of effort, Ben slammed both fists into the ceiling, deliberately bringing down tons of rock between himself and Omni-Man. As the Viltrumite dodged the falling debris, Ben transformed again. Big Chill. The moth-like alien phased through the collapsing cavern, flying upward toward the access shaft. Behind him, he heard Omni-Man's enraged shout as he realized his prey was escaping. You can't run forever, Benjamin Tennyson. I will find you. I will take the Omnitrix. And I will complete my mission. Ben didn't waste breath responding. He poured every ounce of energy into speed, racing up the shaft as the cavern collapsed beneath him. Daylight beckoned above, growing larger by the second. He burst from the shaft into open air, the excavation site now a churning cloud of dust and debris as the underground structure imploded. GDA transport ships hovered nearby, rescue teams ready to extract. Ben. Mark's voice called over the communicator. Status? Still breathing, Ben gasped, flying toward the nearest ship. Arrays destroyed. Your dad's not happy about it. The team made it out. Get to extraction point 3. We're pulling out. Ben spotted the designated ship and headed for it, exhaustion making his flight erratic. As he approached, a sonic boom split the air behind him. He's coming, Ben warned, glancing back to see Omni-Man erupting from the collapsing pit, dust streaming from his body. The transport's loading ramp lowered. Mark stood there, still injured but ready to fight if necessary. Hurry. Ben pushed his tired body to the limit, covering the remaining distance in seconds. As he reached the ramp, he felt something grab his ankle, Omni-Man, face contorted with rage. You're not going anywhere, the Viltrumite snarled, pulling Ben back. Mark didn't hesitate. Despite his injuries, he launched himself from the ramp, tackling his father. The impact broke Omni-Man's grip on Ben, sending all three tumbling through the air. Go! Mark shouted to the pilot. Get Ben out of here. Mark, no. Ben tried to turn back, but Monster Girl grabbed him, pulling him into the ship. He knows what he's doing, she said grimly. Don't waste his sacrifice. The ramp closed as the ship accelerated away. Through a viewport, Ben watched in horror as father and son grappled in mid-air, a blur of motion and violence that no human could fully track. We can't leave him, Ben protested, turning to Cecil who stood at the command console. Mark knew the risks, Cecil replied, though his expression was pained. And he's buying us time. The Omnitrix technology cannot fall into Viltrumite hands. Ben slammed his fist against the wall in frustration. So we just abandon him? No, Robot interjected, his mechanical voice surprisingly gentle. We regroup, recover, and return with a proper rescue plan. Mark is stronger than he appears, especially when protecting others. Ben wanted to argue further, but exhaustion and pain overcame his resolve. He slumped against the wall, reverting to human form. His body was a canvas of bruises and internal injuries, even the Omnitrix's safeguards unable to fully protect him from Omni-Man's assault. Did we accomplish anything today? He asked quietly. Other than making him angry? We disabled the array, Eve reminded him, her own costume torn and bloodied. That buys Earth time. And we've confirmed something important, Cecil added. The Omnitrix can hurt him. Your way big form drew blood. Ben nodded wearily. It wasn't much, but it was something. A vulnerability. A chance. He just hoped Mark would survive long enough for them to exploit it. Back at the GDA bunker, the medical bay worked overtime treating the injured team. Ben lay on an examination table, wincing as doctors catalogued his injuries: 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, a concussion, and countless contusions. The Omnitrix had protected him from the worst of it, but Omni-Man had still done significant damage. You're lucky to be alive, Dr. Sinclair remarked, reviewing his scans. Most people wouldn't survive a single punch from a Viltrumite, let alone extended combat. Lucky me, Ben muttered, hissing as she probed a particularly sensitive rib. Any word about Mark? Her expression turned somber. Nothing concrete. Satellite imagery lost track of them over the Mediterranean. We're still searching. Ben closed his eyes, guilt washing over him. He should have stayed, should have kept fighting. Instead, he'd let Mark face his father alone, again. He wanted you to escape, Dr. Sinclair said, as if reading his thoughts. Mark understands what's at stake. The Omnitrix cannot fall into Viltrumite hands. So everyone keeps saying, Ben replied bitterly. Feels like I'm just a weapon to you people, not a person. Dr. Sinclair's hands stilled. That's not true. You're a remarkable young man, Ben. But the Omnitrix represents technology that could shift the balance of power across the galaxy. In Viltrumite hands, it would mean the subjugation of countless worlds. Before Ben could respond, an alarm blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights flashed in the hallway. What now? Ben groaned, struggling to sit up. Cecil burst into the medical bay, his usually composed demeanor visibly shaken. We have a situation. When don't we? Ben asked, but the look on Cecil's face silenced his sarcasm. What happened? It's Omni-Man. He's broadcasting globally. Every television, radio, computer, he's hacked them all. Dr. Sinclair grabbed a tablet, activating the screen. The image showed Omni-Man, his costume torn and bloodied but his expression calm and determined. Behind him, bound to what looked like a metal slab, was Mark, unconscious or worse, his face swollen with bruises. People of Earth, Omni-Man began, his voice steady. I am Nolan Grayson. For years, I have protected this planet as Omni-Man. Today, I speak to you not as a hero, but as an emissary of the Viltrumite Empire. Ben slid off the examination table, ignoring the pain. Where is he broadcasting from? We're triangulating, Cecil replied, eyes never leaving the screen. Some kind of backup facility. My mission, Omni-Man continued, has always been to prepare Earth for integration into the Viltrumite Empire, a civilization thousands of years more advanced than your own. This integration would have been peaceful, beneficial to humanity. The camera panned slightly, showing more of Mark's battered form. Recent events have complicated this process. Earth harbors technology that threatens Viltrumite interests. Specifically, a device known as the Omnitrix, currently possessed by an interdimensional traveler named Benjamin Tennyson. Ben's blood ran cold as his image appeared on screen, a still photo taken during the Chicago rescue operations. This is a direct address to you, Benjamin. Omni-Man's gaze seemed to look straight into Ben's soul. You have something I want. I have something you want. The camera focused on Mark again. The terms are simple: surrender yourself and the Omnitrix within 24 hours, or Mark dies. After that, I will systematically destroy Earth's major cities, one by one, until you comply. He provided coordinates, a location in the Rocky Mountains. Come alone. Any attempt at rescue or deception will result in immediate execution of the hostage and acceleration of citywide destruction. 24 hours, Benjamin. The fate of this world rests in your hands. The broadcast cut off, leaving the tablet screen dark. The medical bay erupted in activity as GDA personnel rushed to respond to the crisis. Ben stood motionless, processing what he'd just witnessed. Mark, captured. The world, threatened. All because of him and the Omnitrix. Cecil was already barking orders. I want satellite coverage of those coordinates. Full terrain mapping, thermal imaging, everything. Get the response team assembled. He said to come alone, Ben pointed out. He'll kill Mark if we try anything. And he'll kill you both if you surrender, Cecil countered. This is a trap, plain and simple. He wants the Omnitrix, not a negotiation. You think I don't know that? Ben snapped, frustration boiling over. But Mark is only in this situation because of me. Because I let him face Omni-Man alone. Mark made his choice, Cecil said firmly. Just as you'll make yours. But if you hand over the Omnitrix, you doom not just this Earth, but potentially countless worlds. Ben paced the small medical bay, mind racing. There has to be another way. A third option. If there is, we need to find it fast, Dr. Sinclair said. 24 hours isn't much time. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, its green hourglass symbol glowing steadily. So much power, so much responsibility. In his universe, he'd learned to balance that burden, to use the Omnitrix as a force for good while respecting its potential for destruction. Here, it had become a catalyst for disaster. I need to talk to the team, he decided. Everyone who fought at the excavation site. Maybe together we can come up with something. Cecil nodded. I'll gather them in the war room. 5 minutes. As the GDA director left, Dr. Sinclair approached Ben with a syringe. Pain medication. You'll need a clear head for planning. Ben accepted the injection without protest. As the medication took effect, dulling the sharp edges of his pain, he tried to organize his thoughts. Omni-Man wanted the Omnitrix. Mark was the bait. The stakes were literally global. It was Vilgax all over again, but with a hostage Ben actually cared about, and in a universe where the rules of heroism seemed brutally different. By the time Ben reached the war room, the GDA's remaining superhero assets had assembled. Adam Eve, Robot, Monster Girl, the Immortal, Black Samson, all showing signs of recent combat, all grim-faced and determined. We all saw the broadcast, the Immortal stated as Ben entered. What's the plan? That's what we need to figure out, Ben replied, taking a seat at the table. I'm open to suggestions that don't involve me surrendering the Omnitrix or Mark dying. Robot projected a holographic map of the coordinates Omni-Man had provided. The location is remote. High elevation, minimal civilian presence. Strategically advantageous for Omni-Man, open sight lines, difficult approach vectors. He'll see any conventional attack coming, Adam Eve agreed. And he can move fast enough to kill Mark before we reach him. Ben studied the map, an idea forming. What if we don't attack conventionally? What if we use my aliens to approach in ways he won't expect? Such as? Black Samson prompted. Big Chill can phase through solid matter. Ghost Freak can possess people. XLR-8 moves nearly as fast as Omni-Man. Ben leaned forward. I have over 60 aliens, each with unique abilities. Some of them might give us an edge even he wouldn't anticipate. It's risky, Cecil said from the doorway. But it might be our only viable option. The team spent the next hour developing a plan. It was desperate, dangerous, and relied heavily on precise timing, but it was the best they could devise under the circumstances. By the end, even the skeptical Immortal had grudgingly agreed it might work. 12 hours to prepare, Cecil summarized. Then we move. I suggest you all rest while you can. As the meeting broke up, Adam Eve approached Ben. You know this might not work, right? Even with all your aliens, Omni-Man he's something else. I know, Ben admitted. But we have to try. I won't abandon Mark, and I won't hand over the Omnitrix. So we fight. Eve nodded, respect in her eyes. For what it's worth, you've impressed everyone here. Taking on Omni-Man solo, holding your own, that's not something many can claim. Thanks. But next time, I'd rather have backup from the start. Let's make sure there is a next time, Eve said, squeezing his shoulder before walking away. Left alone in the war room, Ben returned to studying the map. The location Omni-Man had chosen was indeed perfect for an ambush, a mountain plateau with sheer cliffs on 3 sides, a narrow approach path on the 4th. Minimal cover, excellent visibility. A killing ground. Thinking of improvements to the plan? Ben looked up to find Cecil watching him from the doorway. Just memorizing the terrain, Ben replied. Every advantage helps. Cecil entered, taking a seat across from him. There's something I haven't told you. Something that might help. Ben's eyes narrowed. More secrets, Cecil. Why am I not surprised? This one I kept for good reason. Cecil placed a small device on the table, a metal cylinder no bigger than a pen. Viltrumite physiology has few weaknesses, but they do exist. One is a vulnerability to certain high-frequency sound waves. Like Echo's sonic attacks? Ben asked, interest piqued. Similar, but more specific. This device emits a frequency that targets the inner ear structure unique to Viltrumites. It won't incapacitate Nolan completely, but it might disorient him enough to give you an opening. Ben picked up the device. Why didn't you mention this before? Because it's untested technology, developed from theoretical models. And because it has a significant limitation, it affects all Viltrumite DNA within range. Including Mark's. Ben's expression darkened. So it would hurt him too. Yes. Which is why I haven't deployed it before. But given the circumstances. It's a last resort, Ben finished. I understand. He pocketed the device. Any other secret weapons you've been holding back? Cecil hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. One more thing. Not a weapon, exactly. Information. He leaned forward. Nolan isn't the only Viltrumite on Earth. Ben blinked. What? We've tracked unusual atmospheric disturbances consistent with Viltrumite flight patterns in several locations globally. Most recently over Chicago, following Nolan's confrontation with Mark. So he already has backup, Ben said grimly. Great. Not necessarily backup, Cecil corrected. The flight patterns don't match Nolan's. And they've never approached his known locations. It's almost as if they're watching him, not helping him, Ben finished, mind racing with implications. A separate Viltrumite agenda? Maybe even opposition? Possibly. Viltrumite society is largely unknown to us. We assumed unity of purpose, but perhaps their empire has its own internal politics. Ben stood, energy renewed despite his injuries. Then we need to find this other Viltrumite. They might be a potential ally. Or another enemy, Cecil warned. Proceed with caution, Ben. The plan to rescue Mark remains our priority. Of course, Ben agreed. But having a backup never hurts. He left the war room with newfound determination. The situation was still dire, the odds against them overwhelming. But now they had a plan, a potential vulnerability to exploit, and the possibility of an unexpected ally. It wasn't much, but it was enough to maintain hope. And in Ben's experience, sometimes hope was the most powerful weapon of all. The Rocky Mountains stretched below like a rumpled blanket as the GDA transport approached the coordinates. Dawn painted the peaks gold and pink, creating a deceptively peaceful scene. Ben stood at the viewport, checking the Omnitrix one last time. Fully charged, ready for the most important battle of his life, in this universe, at least. 5 minutes to drop zone, the pilot announced. All systems nominal. Cecil joined Ben at the viewport. Remember the plan. Reconnaissance first. Confirm Mark's condition and exact location. Then extract, using the specified alien sequence. I remember, Ben assured him. Been going over it all night. The team is in position, Cecil continued, showing Ben a tactical display. Eve and Robot on the north ridge. Monster Girl and Black Samson to the east. The Immortals circling at high altitude for overwatch. And you'll stay on the transport, coordinating, Ben finished. I know, Cecil. We've been over this. Cecil studied him with an unreadable expression. You've faced the end of the world before, haven't you? In your universe. Ben nodded. More than once. It shows. Most teenagers would be terrified. You're focused. Being scared doesn't help anyone, Ben replied simply. Besides, end-of-the-world scenarios are kind of my specialty. The transport slowed, hovering at the edge of sensor range from the coordinates. The pilot turned in his seat. As close as we dare, sir. Any closer and Omni Man will detect our engines. This is good, Cecil confirmed. Ben, you're up. Ben nodded, activating the Omnitrix. Going ghost, he quipped, slamming down on the core. Green light flashed, and Ghost Freak took his place, a spectral, one-eyed alien with a haunting presence. Comms check, Ben's eerie voice whispered. Everyone reading me? Loud and clear, Eve's voice came through his earpiece. We have visual on the plateau. Omni-Man is there with Mark. No apparent additional security. Moving in, Ben replied, phasing through the transport's hull. The early morning air was thin and cold, but Ghost Freak didn't feel it. The alien's intangible form drifted toward the coordinates, invisible to normal sight. Below, the terrain grew more rugged, until finally opening onto the plateau Omni-Man had selected. And there they were. Mark strapped to a metal framework, head slumped forward but chest rising and falling with breath. Alive, at least. Omni-Man stood nearby, arms crossed, scanning the skies methodically. His costume had been repaired, no sign of their previous battle visible. Visual confirmation, Ben reported softly. Mark is alive. Restrained with what looks like metal bands. Omni-Man is on high alert. Can you get closer? Cecil prompted. Assess Mark's condition. Ben drifted lower, careful to maintain Ghost Freak's invisibility. As he approached, he noticed something concerning, a device attached to Mark's restraints, blinking steadily. There's some kind of monitor on Mark's restraints, Ben warned. Probably an alarm system. Proceed with caution, Cecil instructed. Remember, Omni-Man may have enhanced senses beyond normal vision. Ben moved closer still, now directly above Mark. The young hero's face was bruised but healing, Viltrumite resilience at work. His restraints were indeed sophisticated, likely of alien origin. Mark, Ben whispered, allowing just enough tangibility for sound. Mark, can you hear me? Mark's eyes fluttered, then focused with surprising clarity. He gave no outward sign of recognition, but his gaze sharpened. Ben's here, he murmured, so softly even Ghost Freak's enhanced hearing barely caught it. Dad knows. Before Ben could process the warning, something slammed into him, Omni-Man, moving faster than even Ghost Freak could react. The impact forced him into tangibility, his spectral form momentarily solid enough for Omni-Man to grip. Right on time, the Viltrumite said coldly. Though I expected a more direct approach. Ben struggled in his grip, trying to phase away, but Omni-Man's hand tightened around Ghost Freak's core. The ectoneurite form, Omni-Man observed. Intangibility, invisibility, possession. Useful for reconnaissance. Less useful when anticipated. With a sharp twist, he slammed Ben into the ground hard enough to crater the rock. Pain shot through Ghost Freak's normally intangible form. You knew I was coming, Ben gasped. Of course. Did you think I wouldn't prepare for every form in your arsenal? The GDA database was quite thorough. Omni-Man's foot pressed down on Ghost Freak's chest, pinning him. The Omnitrix. Surrender it now, or watch Mark die. Don't do it. Mark called weakly. He'll kill us both, anyway. Omni-Man's expression didn't change. A cynical view, son. Inaccurate, but understandable given recent events. He turned back to Ben. I have no interest in killing either of you. The Omnitrix is my sole objective. Its technology will benefit the Empire, and by extension, Earth under Viltrumite rule. If you just wanted the Omnitrix. Ben struggled to speak under the crushing pressure. Why attack the Guardians? Why betray everyone? Because they would have opposed the Viltrumite mission, Omni-Man answered simply. They were obstacles. The Omnitrix, however, is an asset. One the Empire will value greatly. Ben's mind raced. The plan was already in shambles. Omni-Man had anticipated Ghost Freak. He probably had counters for Ben's other aliens too. They needed a new approach. Okay, Ben said finally. You win. I'll give you the Omnitrix. But first, release Mark. Omni-Man smiled thinly. You're not in a position to negotiate, Benjamin. Maybe not, Ben agreed. But if you kill him, I'll destroy the Omnitrix before you can take it. Trust me, it's been done before. The Viltrumite studied him for a long moment, seeming to weigh the threat. Finally, he lifted his foot, allowing Ben to rise. Very well. A gesture of good faith. He moved to Mark's restraints, deactivating the monitoring device before releasing the bands. There. Now the Omnitrix. Mark collapsed to his knees, still weak from his injuries. He looked up at Ben, a silent message in his eyes, "Don't do it." Ben reached for the Omnitrix symbol on Ghost Freak's chest. "You should know something, Nolan. About the Omnitrix. It has a security feature." Omni-Man raised an eyebrow. "Oh. Yeah. A really cool one." Ben pressed the symbol, transforming in a flash of green light. Atomix. The nuclear-powered alien's appearance was dramatic, humanoid but clearly alien, with a containment suit design and glowing green energy emanating from his core. Before Omni-Man could react, Ben grabbed Mark and shot skyward. Nuclear winner. A blast of atomic energy propelled them away from the plateau at incredible speed. Behind them, Omni-Man recovered from his surprise and gave chase, rage contorting his features. "Team, initiate Phase 2. Ben called into his communicator. "Target is pursuing as expected." Around the plateau, hidden devices activated simultaneously, sonic emitters tuned to the frequency Cecil had identified. The air rippled with invisible waves that wouldn't harm humans but would target Viltrumite inner ear structures. Omni-Man faltered mid-flight, disorientation visible even at a distance. But he quickly adjusted, pressing through the sonic barrier with sheer willpower. "The sonics are slowing him, but not stopping him," Ben reported, still carrying Mark at high speed. "Implementing Phase 3. "Roger that," Cecil's voice confirmed. Team converging on fallback position. Ben changed course sharply, heading for a canyon the team had selected as their battleground. It was narrow enough to limit Omni-Man's aerial maneuverability but wide enough for Ben's planned strategy. "Can you fight?" Ben asked Mark as they flew. "If I have to," Mark replied grimly. "But he's not holding back anymore, Ben. This isn't the dad who taught me to fly. This is pure Viltrumite." "Then we'll just have to be better," Ben said, setting Mark down on a canyon ledge as they reached their destination. "Stay here. I'll draw him in." Ben turned to face the approaching Viltrumite, Atomix's nuclear power glowing brighter. HMNA. A sphere of pure nuclear energy formed between his hands, growing larger by the second. When Omni-Man was almost upon them, Ben released it with a shout. Nuclear impact. The blast caught Omni-Man directly, momentarily engulfing him in atomic fire. The shockwave shook the canyon, dislodging rocks from the cliffs. When the light faded, Omni-Man remained, his costume damaged, skin reddened, but largely unharmed. "Impressive output," he acknowledged. "But insufficient." He charged forward, faster than even Atomix could track. His fist connected with Ben's chest, sending him crashing through the canyon wall. Ben felt Atomix's containment suit crack, nuclear energy leaking dangerously. Time to switch tactics. He hit the Omnitrix symbol, transforming again. Gravitack. The planet-like alien's gravity powers immediately activated, creating a localized field that caught Omni-Man mid-charge. The Viltrumite struggled against the gravitational forces, his forward momentum arrested. "Interesting," Omni-Man grunted, straining against the pull. Galilean gravity manipulation. Effective, but draining to maintain. He was right. Ben could already feel the strain of holding a being of Omni-Man's strength. But he only needed to maintain it long enough. "Now," he shouted. From hidden positions around the canyon, the team sprang into action. Adam Eve created a massive barricade of transmuted matter, cutting off the canyon's exit. Monster Girl, in her transformed state, leapt from above, landing on Omni-Man's back with all her weight. The Immortal and Black Samson attacked from opposite sides, coordinated strikes targeting vulnerable points. For a moment, it seemed to work. Omni-Man, caught in Gravitax's field and assaulted from multiple directions, couldn't effectively counter. Mark joined the fray, delivering a powerful blow to his father's midsection that actually doubled the Viltrumite over. Then everything went wrong. With a roar of effort, Omni-Man broke free of the gravity field, sending out a shockwave that staggered everyone nearby. He moved with blinding speed, a blur of violence that left destruction in his wake. Monster Girl went down first, a precise strike to her head rendering her unconscious. Black Samson followed, his power suit crushed along with several ribs. The Immortal lasted longer, his ancient fighting skills keeping him in the fight for precious seconds before Omni-Man drove him into the canyon floor with enough force to create a crater. Only Mark, Eve, and Ben remained standing. Eve threw everything she had into a barrage of transmuted matter, spiked projectiles, binding restraints, even attempts to transmute the air in Omni-Man's lungs. The Viltrumite shrugged it all off, advancing inexorably toward her. "Your powers are impressive, Samantha," he said, using Eve's real name. "But matter transmutation has limits. Especially against Viltrumite's cellular density." He moved suddenly, appearing behind her before she could react. A precise blow to the back of her neck sent her crumpling to the ground. "Eve!" Mark shouted, charging his father in blind rage. Father and son collided in mid-air, the impact creating a sonic boom that echoed through the canyon. For a brief moment, Mark matched his father's strength, fury giving him focus. Then Omni-Man adjusted his strategy, using Mark's momentum against him, redirecting him into the canyon wall. "You've improved," Omni-Man acknowledged as Mark extracted himself from the rubble. "But you're still thinking like a human, not a Viltrumite." Ben had been using the distraction to prepare his next move. As Gravitax, his options were limited but powerful. He focused his gravitational control on a specific point directly above Omni-Man, creating an intense gravitational singularity. "Let's see how you handle this," Ben growled, increasing the singularity's pull. Omni-Man felt the shift immediately, looking up in surprise as rocks, debris, and even the air itself began to be drawn toward the gravitational anomaly. He fought against the pull, muscles straining visibly. Clever, he admitted. But futile. With a burst of effort, he launched himself directly at Ben, fighting through the gravitational field through sheer brute force. Ben tried to intensify the singularity, but Gravitax's powers had limits. Before he could transform again, Omni-Man reached him, delivering a precisely calculated strike to Gravitax's core. Pain exploded through Ben's form as the gravitational center was disrupted. The Omnitrix sparked, struggling to maintain the transformation under such specific damage. Ben felt himself reverting to human form, the familiar green light washing over him as he collapsed. "And then there were none," Omni-Man said quietly, standing over him. He looked around at the fallen heroes. Such potential, wasted opposing the inevitable. Ben coughed, tasting blood. "It's not over. I admire your spirit, Benjamin. I truly do. But this confrontation has reached its conclusion." Omni-Man knelt beside him, reaching for the Omnitrix. "Now, how does one remove this device properly?" "You don't," Ben gasped, pulling away weakly. "It's bonded to my DNA. Remove it wrong, and it self-destructs." Omni-Man frowned. "A security feature. Logical." He studied the watch more closely. "Then you will show me how to access its control systems. The transformation database must have an interface." "Even if I wanted to help you, I couldn't," Ben said truthfully. "Only its creator knows how to access the core programming." "Everyone has their breaking point, Benjamin," Omni-Man said softly. "Even the most determined heroes. I can be very persuasive when necessary." Before he could elaborate on this threat, a voice called out from above. "That's enough, Nolan." Both Ben and Omni-Man looked up to see a figure hovering in the air, a Viltrumite female with short dark hair and an imperial uniform similar to, but distinct from, Omni-Man's costume. Telia, Omni-Man said, genuine surprise in his voice. What are you doing here? This sector is under my jurisdiction. The female Viltrumite, Telia, descended to the canyon floor. Your jurisdiction is being reviewed. The Empire has concerns about your methods. Her gaze swept over the battlefield, taking in the fallen heroes. These concerns appear well-founded. My mission parameters were clear, Omni-Man replied, standing to face her. Prepare Earth for integration. Eliminate obstacles. The Guardians were obstacles. And the boy with the transformation device? Telia asked, glancing at Ben. Is he an obstacle, or an opportunity you've decided to claim for yourself? Omni-Man's expression hardened. The Omnitrix technology could revolutionize Viltrumite expansion efforts. The Empire would be foolish to ignore it. The Empire makes its own determinations about what is foolish, Telia countered. Your actions have drawn unwanted attention to Earth. Exposed our presence prematurely. And now you're engaged in open conflict with the planet's defenders, including your own son. Ben watched the exchange with growing interest. This was the other Viltrumite Cecil had detected. Not an ally, exactly, but definitely not aligned with Omni-Man's methods. The timetable needed adjustment, Omni-Man argued. The Omnitrix's arrival changed the strategic landscape. A convenient justification, Telia observed coolly. The Viltrum High Council has ordered an immediate assessment of your operation. I am here to conduct that assessment and report back. Omni-Man's fists clenched. You overstep your authority, Telia. I answer directly to General Craig. And General Craig answers to the Council, she replied smoothly. Stand down, Nolan. Return to your cover identity while I evaluate the situation. For a tense moment, it seemed Omni-Man might refuse. Ben could see the calculation in his eyes, weighing his chances against another Viltrumite. Finally, he relaxed his stance. Very well. I will comply with Council procedure. For now. He cast a final look at Ben. But mark my words, Telia, the Omnitrix technology is too valuable to ignore. The Empire will want it. Perhaps, she conceded. But that decision will be made by the Council, not by a field agent who has potentially compromised his assignment. Omni-Man's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. With a final glare at Ben, he launched himself skyward, disappearing into the clouds with a sonic boom. Telia turned her attention to Ben, who was struggling to sit up despite his injuries. The Omnitrix was cycling through recharge mode, its face glowing red. Benjamin Tennyson, she said, her tone neutral. The interdimensional traveler with the DNA manipulation device. That's me, Ben confirmed warily. Here to ensure peace and harmony across the galaxy. How am I doing so far? A flicker of something, amusement, crossed Telia's face. Your situation is complicated. You think? Ben gestured to his fallen allies. Your buddy Nolan just took down Earth's remaining heroes like they were nothing. And now you show up claiming some kind of Viltrumite internal review? Forgive me if I'm skeptical. Telia knelt beside him, her movements precise and controlled. Your skepticism is warranted. But I am not here to harm you or claim your device. My mission is assessment only. And what exactly are you assessing? Whether Earth is truly ready for Viltrumite integration. Whether Nolan's methods have been appropriate. And now, she glanced at the Omnitrix, whether this technology represents an opportunity or a threat. Ben tensed. The Omnitrix stays with me. Non-negotiable. I'm not here to negotiate, Telia replied. Merely to observe and report. She stood, surveying the battlefield once more. Your friends need medical attention. I will not interfere if you wish to evacuate them. As if on cue, the GDA transport appeared over the canyon, Cecil having determined it was safe to approach. Medical teams rappelled down, moving quickly to stabilize the injured heroes. Mark, who had remained conscious through the exchange, approached warily. "You're Viltrumite," he said to Telia. "Like my father." She studied him with interest. "You're the hybrid offspring. Mark Grayson. Your existence is unprecedented in recent Viltrumite history." "Lucky me," Mark said bitterly. "What happens now? Are you taking over where my dad left off?" "My role is different from your father's," Telia explained. "I am an evaluator, not an enforcer. The Empire wishes to understand what has transpired here before determining next steps." Cecil joined them, his expression guarded. "And what might those next steps include?" "That depends on my report," Telia replied simply. "And on subsequent council decisions." Ben was helped to his feet by a medic, wincing at the movement. "So we're just supposed to what? Go about our business while you spy on us and file your paperwork?" "Essentially, yes," Telia confirmed without embarrassment. "Though I would frame it as, continue your normal activities while I complete my assessment." Cecil and Ben exchanged glances. This unexpected development had completely changed the dynamic. Omni-Man was temporarily neutralized by his own people's internal politics, giving them breathing room they desperately needed. "Fine," Cecil said finally. "Conduct your assessment. But understand this, Earth is not a defenseless planet waiting to be conquered. We will protect our independence, whatever the cost." Telia nodded, seemingly unimpressed by the declaration. "Noted. I will observe without interference for the time being." She turned to leave, then paused. "One piece of advice, Benjamin Tennyson. The Omnitrix technology would be valuable to any spacefaring civilization, not just the Viltrumite Empire. I suggest you guard it carefully." With that, she launched into the sky, her departure less dramatic than Omni-Man's but no less impressive. "Well," Ben said as medical personnel helped him toward the transport, "this just got a whole lot more complicated." Mark limped alongside him, his Viltrumite healing already repairing the worst of his injuries. "Dad's been pulled off the field, but only temporarily. And now we have another Viltrumite watching our every move. Better than fighting one, at least for now," Ben pointed out. Cecil followed, deep in thought. "This confirms our theory about Viltrumite internal politics. Nolan acted prematurely, against protocol. It buys us time." "Time for what?" Mark asked. "Time to prepare," Ben answered grimly. "Because something tells me the Viltrumite Empire isn't going to file Telia's report in triplicate and forget about us. They're coming. The only question is when." As they boarded the transport, Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, now cycling back to green. Its power had been enough to challenge Omni-Man, to force a stalemate at best. But against an entire empire of Viltrumites? They were going to need a lot more than alien transformations to survive what was coming. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.